There's been a lot of research being discussed online lately, especially on YouTube, on the subject of modern dating dynamics, as well as on toxic masculinity and misogyny and feminism. And I like to pride myself as someone who can talk to anyone about anything and keep an open mind and an objective point of view. And I just wanted to learn more about what the influencers in that dating space are saying about how to date in today's modern world of dating apps, how attraction actually works according to the research versus how we think it should work, what our blind spots are as men and as women, how we are deluded in our expectations, and what is this concept called hypergamy? What does it mean? How does it work in real life? And one such influencer from what's called the manosphere, whose perspective I found very insightful, is men's dating coach Michael Sartain. So, Michael is an evolutionary psychology nerd. He has read dozens of books about the subject, and he's hosted hundreds of interviews with all of the biggest thought leaders in that space, including Dr. David Buss. And as you'll hear, he has research to back up pretty much everything that he says. I do want to warn you, though, that if you are overly sensitive to men talking about women from an unfiltered and objective point of view, you may want to skip this episode. My job is never to impose my personal views onto those of my guests, but rather to listen, to be curious, and to learn about new and different perspectives. I hope that you take that same approach with this conversation. And finally, this is a longer than usual episode because Michael and I just talked about so many different subjects. When it comes to dating, as you can imagine, there is a lot to cover. I don't expect you to agree with everything that he says. I certainly don't, but I do find his insights and overall perspective intriguing enough to do my own research, and I hope you will too. Michael Sartain, it's a pleasure having you on the podcast, bro.
Hey, Light. Thank you, brother.
I've been, like a lot of guys during the pandemic, I kind of got introduced to a lot of the thought leaders in the red pill space and learned a lot about the simp, um, the simp term, and just all the terms that are associated with the male female dating dynamics that I had no. I mean, I read Neil Strauss's book back in the day when it first came out, The Game, and I know Neil. He's a friend of mine, and I've had had interviews with him as well, and then I got introduced to Rollo Tomasi and Andrew Tate and all these kind of guys, and then in the last year or so, you started popping up in my YouTube For You page, and I started watching your stuff. I saw the interview that you did back in August with Casey, and just been loving your stuff. And it's interesting because you have this red pill community, which I want you to kind of break down what that is. But I feel like you are a really good on ramp to this stuff because you don't come across as a sort of blind disciple of this ideology. You seem like someone who has really made it your own and thought about these things, and you have your own unique perspective. And so we're going to get into all of that. We're going to get into your backstory, and we're going to get into a lot of the points that you have been making in your own podcast and your own interviews. But I just want to just welcome you to the podcast first and foremost, and just give us a little introduction of how you present yourself these days professionally when you're out and about. And I don't know if you're in Vegas full time or LA or you commute back and forth. I kind of get the impression that you're in both, but just tell me a little bit about how you introduce yourself.
Yeah. So the best way for me to say what I do is I'm a male performance coach. I'm not, the thing is, because my program and especially in our marketing, and when you just watch my day-to-day life, because I host the 3 biggest bikini competitions in the world, and because I throw, 18 to 20 social circle events a year that are massive, a lot of the guys from the male dating space see me as like a social circle dating coach. But that's not how we see ourselves as a company, because I teach guys leadership, communication, networking, all these other things. So basically the way to explain it is my program, Men of Action. Guys come for the girls. And then when they come, basically when they join the course, I'm a former US military officer. I treat them, it's like a military program. If you guys have ever been in the military, then you know how you get instruction there. That's how we teach the guys in my program. My program takes about 6 months to get through. And then at the end, what's happened is you're a better communicator. You're a better leader. You speak in a more direct way. You can hold eye contact better. And then at the very end, poof, the women show up because you're actually a better human being. So we sell you what you want. Because if you look at my ads, it's just me with insanely hot women. And then we teach you what you need. And I got that from Alex Becker, somebody I really admire. He was kind of one of the people I heard say that first. And so when you ask about me specifically, one of the things, and it's a help and a hindrance. First off, like a lot of people wouldn't know who I was if it wasn't for Fresh and Fit and for Rolla Tomasi. But like, we're not like, the thing is, I'm not as red pill as they are. So the better way to say it would be the ultimate belief system that I have is evolutionary psychology. So as far as red pill is a derivative of evolutionary psychology, I agree with it. Evolutionary psychology is really what I agree with the most. It's the reason why I got into this space, is because there's actual, when people have these debates, who cheats more, men or women, or why do women leave relationships, or blah, 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 all these questions that people have been asking on YouTube for years. The reality is there's already professors at the University of New Mexico, University of Texas, UC Santa Barbara. There's already professors at Harvard that are studying these things, and there's actual answers to these questions, and they're never brought up on these shows. There's easily applicable data. And so what I wanted to do, and what I try to bring to the audience, is actually trying to use stats and data to apply it to dating. There's a few other guys that do this. I would say Mac and Murphy, Alex Date Psych, and William Costello are other content creators that specifically try to stay in the evolutionary psychology space to answer some of these questions. But I'm the only guy who really is a dating coach who's doing this. So that's where my space is a little different. And the other reason why I'm very different is all of my experiences, or the vast, vast majority of my experiences with women throughout my entire life, are incredibly positive. You'll never hear me calling women hoes or bitches or there's no pejoratives that I ever call women on my shows at all, because most of my friends are female, and women are always introducing me to other women. Maybe like 60% of my friends are female. When I go out, I'm the guy who likes to show up to the club with 20 or 30 girls with me. I like to go to parties. Whenever I go to parties, I like to put 60 or 70 girls on the guest list with me. Whenever I go to speeches like Ty Lopez's events or whatever, I like to always bring 6 or 7 girls to sit with me. I just like to be surrounded by beautiful women whenever I go to social events. And because of that, it's been magnificent as far as me networking, but it's also incredible, it's incredible marketing as well. So that's why I don't really come from the same place as some of the other red pill content creators, like the ones, like for instance, you were talking about ARC, Alan Roger Curry. Their belief is men and women can't be friends. And so my belief is, well, because I'm friends with women, I actually have the ability to date more attractive women than the average guy, or rather, more importantly, more attractive women than I'd be able to date without having female friends. So having an incredible wing woman is something that I teach, stuff like that. So that, if you want to ask where I would state myself, I would say I'm a male performance coach. And then my theories or my strategies when it comes to dating is have as many incredibly awesome female friends as you can, have them get you invited to everything, have them get you used to being around beautiful women, and have them introduce you to other women.
So for those listeners, and a lot of my listeners are female. Okay, so case in point, I was hanging out with a 25-year-old friend of mine, a female, really beautiful model here in Mexico City, where I'm based, yesterday. She was telling me that one of the most impactful books in her life is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, right? By Mark Manson.
Yes.
And I said, oh, that's interesting. Mark Manson used to be a pickup artist.
Yes.
And she said, what's a pickup artist?
Mm.
And she had never heard of any of these terms, because she's this beautiful model and she's never had to study dating dynamics, right? But for men, and we had a little conversation about this. I said, for men, we don't have that experience that you're having. Yeah. A lot of men have to study this stuff and understand the principles and what is it that attracts women, and how do you present yourself in the best possible way that optimizes for mating. And so a lot of my listeners of this podcast are female, and I don't want to assume that they have heard these terms, red pill. Yeah. And so let's just break some of that down. What is the red pill community? How did it originate? And and what are some of the other what is like the basic premise of dating dynamics?
Yeah, for sure. So I want you to consider before 2000, the concept of like men sharing dating techniques with other men was something that was like vaguely done on like text written forums, right? Bulletin boards, that kind of thing. not very
And that guy
common.
Ross,
Ross
what his
Jeffries.
name?
So yeah,
Was on that.
consider the
Yeah.
So Suave forums would have been like the original ones, and Ross Jeffries and Speed Seduction and all this kind of stuff. These would have been the original ones. Now, we don't have enough bandwidth back in 2000 in order to like broadcast video. So this is all text that we're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
About around 2003, one of my best friends, Rollo Tomasi, he gets involved around the same time. It's funny. I'm having several of the same realizations because I'm managing a nightclub at this point, and Rollo is writing these books basically about, you know, male female dynamics, and he's taking a bunch of the essays from the So Suave forum from the point of 2003 to 2013. He puts them into his first book, and it's called The Rational Male. So here's a couple things I want to go over. From 2009 to like the present day, there's this thing called the pickup artistry group. So pickup artists. This was made famous or went from underground to being above ground by the book 2005, Neil Strauss's The Game. Okay. So Neil Strauss, he talks about mystery. Eric von Markovic, another friend of mine, he talks about mystery. He talks about going out and meeting girls. Mystery is an indirect, cold approach. Like really, really good. I've been out with mystery before. A lot of the pickup artist stuff worked very well back then before social media, because pickup artistry was this perfect. It was in this perfect space where there was internet, but there was no social media. So that's from 1999 to like 2011. We had Facebook. We didn't have MySpace. I'm sorry, we had MySpace back then. We didn't have Facebook yet. And so in this area, pickup was phenomenal. It worked really well because there were still a lot of girls that were going out to nightclubs and bars, and guys were going up to strangers and doing cold approach. But and the other
And
thing
cold
about
approach
pickup,
means I don't know this person
I don't know this
previously.
person
I'm
at
just going
all.
to go
Yeah,
up.
exactly. The thing that changed it, that was very different, is there's no politics in pickup. Meaning Mark Manson who is a hardcore liberal, and also Neil Strauss, who's a hardcore liberal. They were in the same spot as right now. A lot of the pickup artists are hardcore conservative. Then later on, what happened right around 2013, once Red Pill started coming out, Red Pill has a very politically conservative tint to it. So Red Pill is a derivative of pickup, but it's more about the defense. Like, don't get taken in they go over custody battles and things like men taking their own lives, and concepts like, what's it called? Prenuptial agreements, and women trying to take your money and all this kind of stuff. So then what happened is, in the Red Pill or manosphere space, that's when you get these different derivatives. So pickup is one of them. The Red Pill guys are one of them. There's also guys called Black Pill. Then there's guys called the Mode 1 guys, all these different derivatives. And these guys all had their different theories on how to pick up women or to be successful with women. Pickup was just about picking up women. That's all. People didn't care if the girl had a high body count, if she was a conservative, a liberal. No one cared about this. And then later on, it's funny you're asking me this question, because I just asked, there's a documentary someone's doing on this, and they asked me all these same questions, and I had to go back and do a bunch of research. Around 2017, when you started seeing a lot of guys start to stream on the internet, this is the first time when Rollo Tomasi shows his face. And then Rollo actually had Andrew Tate on his show, like way back when. And then around 2018, 2019, then Fresh and Fit starts doing their first live streams where they have girls come on the show. Andrew Tate comes on that, and a phenomenon is born. Now, all of a sudden, not only is Red Pill content popular, it is literally the most super chatted thing on the entire internet. And during COVID, you started seeing a lot of guys getting into this. It got more and more powerful, to the point where Andrew Tate becomes the most Googled person in the entire world in August of 2022, I believe. I can't remember. It's August 2021 or 2022. He becomes that. He gets canceled. And then what you start to see, I'm sorry, there's another thing I forgot to mention. In 2017, all the guys who were doing the pickup stuff, they had all this infield cold approach that was hidden. So the camera was hidden. They would walk up to girls, blur out their faces, and they would go up and pick up these women on camera and then like leave with them. Now, a lot of it was bullshit. They weren't actually leaving with these girls. They were just spinning them around and editing the video to make it look like they were hooking up with girls that they weren't hooking up with. But what happened was, about 500 content creators in the pickup space had all of their channels deleted on YouTube. And so the pickup industry sort of died. You see this happen with Real Social Dynamics. That was one of the companies where this happened. But all the infield video from all these pickup companies was taken off the internet around 2017. Then the Red Pill space blows up 2018, 2019. Fresh and Fit blows up. Then a creator on the West Coast named Brian Atlas creates the Whatever podcast. So the two biggest podcasts in this space were the Whatever podcast on the West Coast, Fresh and Fit on the East Coast. It's funny because I'm going out with the Fresh and Fit guys tonight after my show. These things blow up, they get bigger and bigger, they get more and more popular. And what happens is two things are going on. Men are being educated as to like the dynamics between men and women, but also there is a subset of men who are very angry and very hateful. And they start commenting on these things and they start saying horrible things about women on there. This is true. It's not that red pill content created men to be misogynist, but men who were misogynist used red pill content as a sounding board in order to express their opinions, which is why it got so bad so quickly. And it's something that I really try to stay away from in my content. This is the very same thing. Like I compared to, between Harris and Trump, I support Donald Trump, but do I think Donald Trump's racist? No. But do I believe racist people follow Donald Trump? Yes, I do. I absolutely think they do. And so that it's one of those type of situations. I don't think red pill content makes men misogynistic. I think what happens is misogynistic men are looking for a space to comment on TikTok, to comment on YouTube, to comment on Instagram. And that's or more importantly, Twitter. And that's the space that they use to do so. And then people backwards rationalize, oh, well, all this does is teaching men to be misogynistic. I don't agree with that at all. If anything, teaching men to not misunderstand what women are saying is causing them to not be misogynistic. Misogyny, you said you had Alan Roger Curry on your show. At the end of his book, Mode One, he has one of the best descriptions of misogyny I've ever heard. He said that men do not become misogynistic because they are rejected by women. Men become misogynistic because women waste their time, friend zone them, make the man spend a bunch of time and effort and resources to court the woman. They take the woman out on dates. They listen to the woman's problems. And then while they're sitting there talking to the woman, she's crying on his shoulder, and she's crying about another guy that she slept with on the first date. And you're like, wait a second, I just spent all this time and effort with you and you friend zoned me and you just slept with some other guy on the first date. That is when men become misogynists. When women waste men's time, that is when men become misogynists. I totally agree with him on that. It's like, because you become very resentful of someone who wasted your time. And so that, I think that's where that whole space, and that's where we are today. And I'll let you guys know, pickup artists, they already got kind of canceled in 2017. Red pill content was being ratioed. People use the word shadow ban. Shadow ban is not a real term. It's actually ratioed. What happens is they take a bunch of your content and then they siphon off the normal viewers you would have gotten to someone else. There's actually like government watch organizations that are trying to get all red pill content creators to siphon off their views to what are called blue pill content creators. Like a great example of a blue pill content creator would be like Chris GQ Perry. He's a guy who gives absolutely terrible advice to men. He comes out there, he says just platitudes. He gaslights women for hours and just basically tells women everything they want to hear. Like there's this great video of 50 Cent. And it starts off 50 Cent's talking, and he goes, men who want to date multiple women at the same time are weak. It just shows that he's insecure, whatever. And you see thousands of women liking this post and content, of course, not understanding it was a deep fake. 50 Cent never said that. The guy who wrote Magic Stick never said it, talking about PIMP. The guy who wrote Pimp is not sitting there saying that men who want to date multiple women are weak. But so many people wanted to believe this was true, that this video that where 50 Cent is being deepfaked, and we're going to show it on Access Vegas tonight, this video where 50 Cent is being deepfaked got millions of likes. Women I know fell for this whole trap. So people who kind of like severely disagree with the concepts of hypergamy, they're what we call blue pill content creators. And blue pill content creators think there's no crisis in dating, that the men at the bottom are not being stepped on, that there's a patriarchy that only hurts women, it doesn't hurt men, stuff like that. And so that's where this ultimate debate has gotten to. The problem is, even though, I'm going to give an example, Myron Gaines and Rolla Tomasi, Aaron Clary, and Andrew Tate are on a DHS Department of Homeland Security watch list right now. Don't take my word for it. Google it yourself. They've put these people on a watch list as if they are terrorists because they're trying to inform men about some of the dangers of what happens when you get involved with the wrong woman. And so because of this is what I was saying. And like, we're going to get into one other part that's really, really controversial, something that's got me in a lot of trouble. I don't know if you saw, but in this last election, 30% of African-American men under the age of 50 voted for Donald Trump. That is an outrageously high number. That number almost doubles what happened previous. And it's the highest number since Richard Nixon, since the 1960s. 41% of Hispanics voted for Donald Trump. One of the things I said was that red pill content wasn't dangerous because Google and Meta were trying to protect women. the reason why it was dangerous was it was causing men who were minorities, Hispanic and Black men, to vote Republican. That was my prediction. And sure enough, I was absolutely vindicated, because people thought I was crazy when I said it. But the number of minorities that voted Republican after this red pill wave happened was astronomically higher. And I was saying the reason why this content is being ratioed is not because they're trying to protect women. If anyone's trying to protect women, it is the red pill content creators. The reason why this content was ratioed was because it was causing minorities who had always voted Democrat to start voting Republican. It turns out that's exactly what happened, and one of the reasons why Donald Trump won the election. So, I mean, I know I went a long roundabout way of trying to describe it, but for me, I describe the whole space in general. For me personally, all I care about is male self-improvement. I don't never try to bash women. I'm not trying to blame anyone. We are the way we are because of evolution. I do a show every week where I have 8 women come on and we ask their opinions on different things. There's no acrimony between us. These girls are my friends. Several of them I've dated, and we're all cool. I live here in Las Vegas, and since I've done the show, because my content is not as bombastic, a lot of people who are heavy academics or people who really want to understand the data, they gravitate towards me. The people who are looking for extreme viewpoints, they don't really gravitate towards me as much.
Hey, so a lot of you all have been reaching out with your guest suggestions. And look, I appreciate it. I do. And to help make it easier for those guests to say yes to my invitation, I need you to subscribe to this channel. Just hit the subscribe button below, and that's literally the best way to help me get you that guest on my podcast. All right. Thank you so much for helping out, and back to the show. Yeah, if I had to break the red pill community down to one line, I would say that it's a change in, or flipping the paradigm from the woman is the prize
Yeah.
to man is the prize. Is that how you
Well,
understand it as
yeah,
well?
I mean, I think that's one way to say it. Another way I'd like to say it is, $6.6 billion. That's how much revenue OnlyFans made last year. And I think the part of the reason why is because a lot of men. So one of the problems is when I say men is not a monolith. Men understand this, but women tend to not understand this. Most men don't have any options with women. The average man in the United States makes $59,000 a year or less. Okay. Most men in this last year have had 0 sexual partners or 1 maybe. Okay. Most men don't do well with women. If you on dating apps, the top 10% of men get 16 times as many matches as the median man. So there's this massive group of men that are sort of just like treading water. And then there's this top 10% of men who have unlimited options with women. When women are complaining about men, they're complaining about these top 10% of men, and they're conflating that with all men. They're saying men cheat all the time, not realizing that when they went to Walmart earlier today, the 5'6" cashier never cheats, but she didn't notice him. And he doesn't have any options with women because he doesn't make a lot of money and he's not very tall. So this is the part where like my audience is that bottom group of men that are completely invisible to women. And women, not only do they not acknowledge that these men are invisible, they don't even acknowledge that these men exist. Like, this is one of the reasons why of Boys and Men, which is a great book written by Richard Reeves. He's a professor and he's a senior fellow at the Brookings Institute, which is a think tank. And by the way, politically progressive or politically liberal. He came out with this book basically explaining why, what's happened is because 60% of college enrollees are female, which is a great thing. I'm not saying that's a problem, but because that happened, what you should expect is these women to make more money, which you see in certain areas, in certain countries. And I believe in the United States, I believe women under the age of 30 are outpacing men as far as income is concerned. And so what's happened is because these women are making more money, what you would hope to expect is that because women make more money, they don't need partners who make more money. But what we've seen, Light, is because of evolutionary psychology, the opposite is true. When women make more money, they want men who make even more money. So you consider Rihanna, she was worth $400 million dating a billionaire. So even though Rihanna had $400 million, she didn't say, no, honey, don't worry about making any money. I got us. She didn't do that. She wanted a man who made even more money than her. And so what's happened is the men that these high achieving women have to choose from is a smaller and smaller pool. If you guys want to read, there's an essay written by Dr. David Buss from the University of Texas going over this dilemma that women are starting to face as women make more and more money. the men that they have to choose from the pool they have to choose from becomes smaller and smaller. If you're one of those men, let's just say, for instance, you have a bachelor's degree, you are a former U.S. military officer, you make a really good living, those men who now are high achieving men, they have a business that's scalable, they stayed in really good shape. Those men have so many options with women that now these women who are only choosing these highest tier men are complaining because like, oh, every time I meet Tom has all these girls chasing him. He's a fuckboy. He's a narcissist. I'm like, no, he's not a narcissist. He just has so many options. And the other guys that you had to choose from, you think that you're settling for those guys. And you can see this on dating apps. Women will right swipe 5% of the time. Men will right swipe 55% of the time. As women are exposed to more and more images of very high achieving men, then what happens is their current partners or men that they could go on dates with, they look wanting. They're less desirable. Like Steve down the street, Steve, your neighbor, in 1955, you would have dated Steve, your neighbor. But now it's like you look at Steve and it's like, Steve doesn't have a Bugatti. Where's Steve? Steve doesn't have six-pack abs. I look on the internet and I see guys with six-pack abs and Bugatti everywhere. Why can't I find that? I go on dating apps and I right swipe on the hottest guys who are all 6'4". When you explain to women that a man who's 6 feet tall makes up 14% of the population, and a man who makes $100,000 a year makes up 17% of the population, it's not 14% plus 17%. It's 14% times 17%. It's 2.3% of men. Ladies, listen to me right now. 2.3% of men are 6 feet tall and make $100,000 a year. 2.3% of men. And we have not looked at whether or not he's married, whether or not he's obese, or whether or not he's good looking. If we take those things into account, we're talking 0.02% of men that you have to choose from. I want a guy who's 6'5", blue eyes, who works in finance. We looked at that. There were literally like 6'5", blue eyes, works in finance, and like was single. It was something like 6 men in Manhattan that were in that category. If you were 6'3", you are in. There's 1% of men that are 6'3", and so women, because they see, because it's very similar, but to what happens to men when they watch pornography. Men watch pornography and think women should behave that way and women should look that way. Women look at images on social media and they start believing that, oh, this is what I should accept. I should only accept a man who looks like this, who does this for me, who makes this much money. And so because of this happening, we have these unreasonable beliefs about what women want and what men want. And so what men want, high status men, what they want is they want sex before commitment. And what women want is they want commitment before sex. And because these two things, if you know anything about trading, like in the stock market, because the bid and the ask spread is so high, there's no transaction. And so what you should expect to see is the lowest fertility rate, the lowest marriage rate, and a high number of men not in relationships. And then when we look empirically, what do we see? The lowest fertility rate, check. The lowest rate of marriage, it's 6 women out of every 1,000 that want to get married, check. And we should also see the 66% of men under the age of 30 are single. Let me say that one more time. 66% of men under the age of 30 are single. 33% of women under the age of 30 are single. It just, the numbers bear out what you would expect when you see stuff like this. So what's happened is we have this perceived dilemma of choice for men and women. Men have this perceived dilemma of choice because they watch pornography, because they're on OnlyFans, etc. And women have this perceived dilemma of choice because they're getting thousands of messages on social media apps thinking that they could date all these men long term, when in reality, no, one of the problems that'll happen like is a girl who's moderately attractive, she'll go on a date with like a shortstop or a power forward. She'll have sex with him one time and she'll tell all of her friends that she was dating him. Of course, she wasn't dating him. He's married. There's no pictures of the two of them together, but in her mind, she's stuck on her highest setting. So because she dated a 6'8" power forward, every man she dates from that point forward has to meet up to that. She's been what the term we use in Red Pill is called alpha widowed. So now what's happened is the hottest, most high status men she's ever dated, every man has to compare to him. And because they can't, then now she's settling. And the reality is she isn't settling. Most men and women, because of economics, they end up kind of where they're supposed to be. They generally do. Like, so if a woman is like, she says she's trying to date an 8 and she ends up marrying a 5. The reality is the guy she married wasn't a 5. The guy she married was an 8. But because her entire view of men has been skewed so far to the left, she thinks she's dating a 5. She's actually dating an 8. And if you look across on the assortative mating scale, she's actually with the guy she's supposed to be with, but in her mind, she's settling. So that's what happens. And then because she thinks she's settling, then we get into the other part where 70 to 80% of divorces are initiated by women. And we have a 56% divorce rate. So these women who are unsatisfied by their partners, they think, well, I've had to settle for this partner. I want to go back to Chad Thundercock that I dated one time when I was so-and-so. It's so, dude, do you know how many women I know that are like, dude, I've been engaged 5 times. Ladies, don't tell people you've been engaged 5 times. That is not a flex. That just means dudes were using you for sex and you're too dumb to realize what was going on. Nobody should ever be engaged 5 times, okay? Or the women who there's so many times, I'm friends with Dan Bilzerian, and girls will come to me and be like, yeah, I was dating Dan, and I'll ask Dan about the girl, and Dan's like, yeah, I just fucked that girl like twice. I have no idea. I don't even remember her last name. So in her mind, she was dating him. In his mind, and in his mind, he's like, this was just some girl I was having sex with. And I see women doing this all the time and then complaining about those men. Remember, they're complaining about this top 10% of men, not all men. They're not complaining about the mailman. They're not complaining about the cashier. They're not complaining about the guy in the drive-thru who gave them their Chick-fil-A. They're not complaining about that dude. They don't even see that dude because they would never date him. So that's kind of where we are as a society. That's why there is a crisis in dating because of what I just described to you. And that's why red pill sort of popped up. And because academia would not accept this premise, academia did not accept the premise that men were suffering and that there was a group of men that were getting no attention from women. Because that happened, then when Andrew Tate came out with his message, that's why he became so incredibly popular, because there was a void. In academia, like if you and I, we decided, let's say we're associate professors at like Cal Berkeley, and we're like, hey man, I have a great idea for a course. I've seen all this data showing that the number of men when men have been divorced, I don't know if you know this, they're eight times more likely to take their own life. 8 times more likely to take their own life. In general, men are 4 times more likely to take their own life than women. Men are more likely to suffer from mental illness, way more likely to be homeless, all these things. So if you and me, we had a course, we went to Berkeley, it was like, hey man, we're going to do a course. It's called Why Men Suffer. What do you think the likelihood we'd be able to do a course at Berkeley called Why Men Suffer? It would never happen. But men are still suffering, even though academia didn't want to recognize it. And because there was this void, Richard Reeves, again, the PhD fellow at Brookings Institute, he said it best. He goes, Andrew Tate was our fault. We decided to not discuss the why men suffer. And because we decided to not discuss it, Andrew Tate became the most popular person in the world because there was this void where nobody was talking about it.
So you made a lot of references there to women having certain preferences. And then you also talked about this term hypergamy, which I first heard about from Rollo. I'm not sure if Dr. Butts is the one that coined this term or whoever.
No, it's actually Sheryl Sandberg. There was actually women. So the term hypergamy it didn't even come from there. It comes from, it's from India, places that have a caste system. Mm-hmm. Yeah, any country that has a caste system like South Africa or India, people who marry out of their caste, it's called hypergamy. That's where the term comes from.
Interesting. So talk a little bit about how that works. And then also, I've watched the Whatever podcast. I've watched Fresh and Fit. I've seen you and Rollo talking to women. Yeah. And not every single time, but more often than not, women tend to reject this idea or they see themselves as the exception. And I'm sure somebody listening or watching this right now is getting triggered just listening to you talk about these kinds of concepts. Why? What is it about female nature? Because we know scientifically that the male brain and the female brain, they assess information differently. So what is it about the female nature that causes them to not really see what's happening in terms of their own preferences and the impact and influence that they're getting from social media and from these guys that they're quotes dating that allows them to reject the other guys that are around them right now?
Yeah, so this is a really complicated answer, and I want to make sure I express this before I say anything. Women are more picky than men, and this is let's start with something women will agree with. Women are more picky than men. They have to be. Women have the burden of gestation, meaning like if a woman has sex with the wrong guy, we'll go back to the Pleistocene. Cave women. If a cave woman has sex with the wrong guy and raises she can be ostracized from the tribe, and that's basically death for her. And so women in general are more picky than men. There's a professor back in the 1970s named Robert Trivers who came out with this thing called parental investment hypothesis, which is the concept of in a 2-gender species, the gender that has more to lose or puts in more parental investment is going to be more selective. The other part of this hypothesis was that the other gender was going to compete with members of that same gender for access to the more selective gender. And that's what we see. It is ubiquitous. There is no example anywhere in nature where this is not true. Even in case of certain seahorses, there's a type of spider, and there's a type of fish where the men actually carry the children to term, and the females compete for the men. There's a type of fish, I forgot what it's called, like a clownfish, where the females are twice the size as the males, and they compete for the males, because the males are the ones who actually carry, like they physically carry the eggs on their body. In this case, because women are more selective, when you look at this downstream, this is basically what happens. When hypergamy exists and it's unchecked, you will always, in every society, end up in a situation of polygyny, meaning there's going to be a few men at the top who get a ton of attention and a lot of men at the bottom who don't. When you have encouraged monogamy, like you see in certain like Middle Eastern countries, or by the way, most men in Middle Eastern countries don't have multiple wives. You have to be pretty wealthy to have multiple wives.
Mm-hmm.
Most men don't have multiple wives. Or in the United States, where we have a Protestant ethic that causes us to have one wife. When you have, or in India where they have arranged marriages, you're actually going to see men in that bottom third or bottom quartile at least get one wife. And because of that, because more men have one wife, you actually have a greater population increase. When you have polygyny, where you have a few men with multiple wives or multiple girlfriends, it actually stagnates the population, and you have a bottom third of men who actually become violent. This is where you see, generally you do. Recently, we haven't seen it because of video games and porn. They've sort of sedated the violent nature of men. And that's why we keep this problem just keeps getting more pernicious and more pervasive year after year. But going back to your original question was what with women. The term delusion comes, and it actually is the correct term to say delusional. If I were to say this is what reality is and this is what you believe, and there's a delta between the two, that delta is delusion. That's by definition, that's what it is. So what's happened is women will go on dating apps, and it's not their fault. Remember what I said initially. It's no one's fault. This is a function of evolution. Women are more selective than men. When women go on dating apps, because women are being right swiped on at a rate 16 times as much. The average woman gets 16 times as many matches as the average man on dating apps. On Tinder, there are 9 men for every woman. Because on these dating apps, women are seeing that they're being pursued at such an outrageously high rate, they start to believe that some of these high tier men that they're right swiping and matching with, they could get all of these men to settle down long term. And all these lower status men who are matching with them, they could get them to settle down long term. And the reality is they can't. And it takes them maybe about 10 years or so to come to the reality that every time they start dating Brock, the bartender, Chad, Chad Thundercock, and Steve, the male stripper, Victor, the VIP host, when they start dating these super either wealthy or good looking men, they come to the realization, wait, I thought I could get this guy to settle down. I can't. And now next thing you know, I'm 32, 33, 34, and then men are the problem. No, the problem was, and it's not, again, not your fault. I'm not blaming women for this. The problem was you started receiving all these false indicators from social media, possibly in OnlyFans and from dating apps, that let you think that that men were competing for your long-term commitment, when reality, men were competing for short-term sexual access, right? She went on a date with Drake. She fucked Drake one time, and now she believes that every guy that she dates from this point forward has to match up to Drake. I'm using extreme examples because these are names you guys are aware of. It's not usually Drake. It's usually like some guy she met at a bar who was some 6'3" Australian male stripper with 6-pack abs and tattoo sleeves. And now she compares every guy she dated to that one night she had with this one guy. And so because women get stuck on their highest setting, they start to believe that this is what they deserve. So when you ask them, how much money does a guy have to make in order for you to date them? And we've done this hundreds of times. Whatever podcast does this, Fresh and Fit podcast does this. We do this, guys. We are not selecting for women who are dumb. I'm specifically on my podcast. I specifically try to have women with master's degrees who are mothers or married. I'm always looking for that. We do shows where none of the girls have OnlyFans. None of the girls are models. And in every case, we get the same answers. Women say they want to date men who make $400,000 a year. They're not interested in men who are under 6 feet tall. And when we talk about $400,000 a year, that puts you in the top 3% of wage earners, I believe. The top 1% is $816,000 a year. Top 1/10 of 1% is $3.3 million. Top 10%, I believe, is $134,000 a year. When women are saying, I want a guy who makes $400,000 a year and he's 6 feet tall, we're talking about 0.002% of men that they have to choose from. And they all believe that those men are capable and willing to settle down with these women. And so because of then the delusion exists. Because of this, this delusion that they have, then that's where we get into these problems. And they're like, oh, I don't want to settle. There's one study that I love this study. It was one that Alex from Date Psych he gave out, and he showed that basically women admit to they're willing to settle for a guy who's a 5, and men are willing to settle for a woman who's an 8. And so what he was trying to say is that women are not as selective as men are saying. But the part that Alex forgot is that women think most men are a 5. Women think super good looking men who make $80,000 a year are a 5. Women think there's a great eHarmony study that showed that women believe that 80% of men are below average attractiveness. 80% of men. And so when you realize that, of course, women think they're dating a 5 because they think most men are a 5. And so in reality, they're not a 5. I don't know if you've seen this one clip. I love this, where this one woman is saying that Ryan Gosling is mid. Ryan Gosling is mid. So I want you, just so you any of you ladies out there who think Ryan Gosling is mid or you agree with it, I just want you to understand this is a psychological coping mechanism that you have so that you don't feel rejection from the fact that someone like Ryan Gosling would never date you in a million years. What's happened is if we were to take the dating profiles of a million men and then stratified where Ryan Gosling's dating profile with him with his shirt off, his 6-pack abs, where would he be? He would be in the top 0.1% of dating, meaning he would get that many right swipes. That's what Ryan Gosling would get. So to call him mid is just to say someone who's that attractive is mid is evidence of the delusion that I'm trying to express to you. Does that make sense? Now, what the other things that's happened is you see a lot of these like girls who used to do pornography. We'll see Mia Khalifa do this. We'll see Riley Reid do this. They'll get out of porn. And then after they get out of porn, they'll start dating men. And then these men who are clearly not taking them seriously for long-term dating will eventually cheat or whatever. And then they start complaining about pornography. They start complaining about men are trash and all this kind of stuff, not recognizing, hey, you did porn. That's the reason why a lot of men that you would have liked previously don't take you seriously. And then they get very angry. And the other one is there's a lot of men. There's nothing wrong, guys, if you're out there and you want to date a single mom. I'm not telling you there's anything wrong with that. But there are a lot of men who are very high status who don't want to date a single mom. And women find this to be horribly offensive. But from his standpoint, from a genetic standpoint, I'm raising someone else's genetics. That's the reason why they have an issue with it. And so you see people like on The View, and you see people like Chris GQ Perry saying that men need to step up and date single moms, and you need to be more of a man and date single moms. There's nothing wrong if you want to date a single mom, but you're not better than me because you dated a single mom. That doesn't make you a better person than me. And that's one of the issues that's another issue that, by the way, I've dated single moms before. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is what happens is in general, there's this belief that men should not select against women who are obese, select against women who are single mothers, select against women who are covered in tattoos. And when men express these preferences, they're dealt to be insecure, misogynistic, who hurt you, bro, small dick energy, all this kind of stuff when men have these preferences. When women are asked who they want to date, I want to date a guy who's 6 feet tall. Why is that not small vagina energy? You know, like when women have a preference, there's no issue with women having a preference. When men have a preference, it's misogynistic. And that's the other thing that we've seen. When men don't want to date women who are obese, that actually has to do with fertility. That's a problem when it comes to fertility. When women want to date men who are short, there's no real reason to not date a guy who's short. Most of the most capable fighters in the world are 5'9". Navy SEALs, the majority of Navy SEALs are not 6 feet tall. The best boxers in the entire world, pound for pound, the most skilled boxers are not 6 feet tall. Some of the best MMA fighters are not 6 feet tall. Most dangerous men in the world are not 6 feet tall. And I'm saying this as a guy who's 6'1". Some of the baddest men in the entire world, Mike Tyson, when he was at his peak, was 5'10". These guys are not 6 feet tall. So women choosing men who are tall to protect them is not really a viable strategy in 2024. Men choosing women who don't have a super high body count, who are obese, that actually has to do with not getting cheated on. That's where and it has to do with being able to carry a child to term. Now, everything I said, even though it is objectively true, is going to come off as horribly misogynistic. And I'm going to say this, because if you want to learn the truth, you need to understand this. If something is true, it cannot be misogynistic. If something is true, it cannot be racist. If something is true, it cannot be bigoted. If the GSS does a survey that shows that women who have cheated in a relationship on average have 230% more sexual partners before they're married than women who didn't cheat, then you can actually say there's a correlation between having a lot of sexual partners before you're married and cheating. And by the way, same thing goes for men. I don't want to sit here and act like men who have a lot of sexual partners don't cheat, because that men actually cheat more than women. What I'm saying is, if I put that data out there that a woman who's previously been a sex worker, she's been with 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 men, that she's more likely to cheat than less likely. If I say that, that's not misogynistic if statistically I can prove it. And that's where we get into the rub. And that's why I get ratioed. That's why people have a problem with my content. If what I'm saying is objectively true, it cannot be bigoted. It cannot be misogynistic. And that's where people have a problem. And I'm saying this from a person, like, again, most of my friends are females. I have several, like, and I love them. And I tell them this stuff. And originally they resist it. And then after a while, they realize they have to, if they want to get in a good, healthy relationship, they got to listen to some of the things I'm saying. Because if they don't, they're going to continue to live in this world of delusion where they keep dating rappers and they keep dating the lawyers who drive expensive cars. And they keep wondering why they're never getting chosen for long-term commitment. And it's like, it's because of who you're choosing. And they don't want to hear it. Initially, they don't want to hear it. Then eventually they do.
Yeah, and one thing I've seen you do that I thought was really useful and effective is you'll ask them to answer a question for their friends instead
Yeah.
of for
That's
them
one of the, oh my
personally,
God,
because
that's such a great one. Yeah.
that's great, because then they really are objective, because
Mhm.
they don't pretend, they're not
Yeah.
performative when they're talking
So
about
great.
their friends versus when they're talking about themselves. But you mentioned healthy relationship, right? So let's spend a moment just talking about the women out there who just heard what you said, and they immediately say, well, I'm not looking to date Drake or the equivalent of Drake in my neighborhood. Let's say I just want to date someone nice. Okay, so there's a different
Yeah.
conversation happening between
Yes.
who you're attracting and then how you show up in the relationship. And there's this whole thing
Yeah.
about masculine and feminine, and she needs
Yeah.
to be submissive and he needs to be a leader. Da, 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 da. So what does the research say about that for retaining a relationship?
So the worst thing that you can choose someone on, this is for men or women, the worst attribute you can choose a long-term partner on is physical appearance. The number one attribute we all choose a partner on is physical appearance.
Dating apps, it's just
Yeah, it is. It's
pictures.
just physical appearance. And so we are literally being manipulated into only choosing partners based on physical appearance. And I'm one to talk, right? I'm as guilty as anybody in this category. But the thing is, when you realize this stuff, it's like we're so quick to try to get into. The first thing I'm going to tell you is this: you guys want to get into a really healthy relationship, start from a place of not needing to be in a relationship. That is the best piece of advice I can give you. Find a life where you are fulfilled in other things. Guys, there's 70 million homeless animals in this country. Spend your time rescuing animals and finding foster homes for animals. Do that. Like, I found that whenever I was depressed, I just go rescue a cat. There's so many people, there are so many food pantries and soup kitchens in this country that need volunteers. Find something internally where you find internal self-worth before you need to get into a relationship. Build a business, get in the best shape of your life. There's all these things. I highly recommend. I have a book list, about 35 books I recommend everybody live. By the way, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck is on my book list. I recommend guys go through, make your life passion to go through 50 incredible books. Do things like that before you need to get into a relationship. Then once you do that, what happens is, just imagine like you've just been evicted from your apartment and you got to go find another apartment. You're going to take the first spot you can get. It doesn't matter. They can screw you over in your lease. It doesn't make any difference. Just imagine if you have the greatest apartment in the world and you just start viewing other apartments. You're on a month to month, but you don't really care. It's way better to rent a new apartment or to buy a new house when you already have a great house, rather than trying to buy one out of desperation, which is what most people do when they try to get into a relationship. So number one thing I'm going to tell you is stop coming from a place of wanting or lack when you're trying to get into a relationship. Come from a place of abundance. When you do so, you're going to have a much better time. Number two, and this is for women, there's a guy right now, he's been messaging you for weeks. He messages you. You think he's kind of cute, but like for whatever reason, he doesn't like light your fire. Give that guy a shot. I know it's hard. Like, you're so you want to put this guy in the friend zone because there are other guys that he doesn't compare to these other guys. Give that dude a shot. Give the guy a shot who's willing. Here's what I like to say. When women always ask me questions, because giving women advice is actually really simple. It's very simple. Ladies, ready? Here's all the advice you need. You guys can send all those books back. You don't need to watch The View or anyone else. I'm going to give you the number one piece of advice. And this advice will be true for all of you. It will make sense for all of you. Most of you will listen to me. You'll agree with me. And then you will not follow this piece of advice. Take your interactions with any man. Go back through them and be like, okay, he did this, then he texted me and he said this, then he did this, and then he texted me, and then he didn't show up for a date, then he did this, and then I saw him liking this girl's post, and then he said this, and then blah, blah, blah. Take the entire interaction, take out all the words. No more words. Just remove all the text messages, remove all the things he said, and only look at his actions. You will have a 100% correlation to what he believes about you. All you have to do is look at his actions. Women are right, probably listening to this like, yeah, he's probably right. That sounds correct, but you aren't doing it. Hardly any of you do this. There's a reason why you're getting cheated on over and over again, because you're not doing what I just said. If you just take the words out, you're going to completely understand what he wants from you. That it's that simple. But this is why women are like, oh, I'm being gaslit or whatever. No, stop listening to the words. If you don't listen to a man's words and you only pay attention to his actions, he can't gaslight you. It's not possible. Right. And so that's what I tell women. That's really that, and having strong male figures in your life that you can go to for advice. And the reason why I say strong male figures, the reason why I'm saying this, it could also be grandma. Grandma could be one of these people. You need to get advice from the opposite sex. I'll say this for men too. You need to get advice from the opposite sex from someone who's not attracted to your partner. Does that make sense? Meaning, if I have a female friend named Sally and Sally's dating Brock, and it's very clear, like Sally is super into Brock, the sex is incredible, she's getting gaslit like a motherfucker and she can't see it. I go and I see Brock and I'm like, like all the tattoo sleeves and the steroids and all the shit, it has no effect on me because I'm a heterosexual male. So the spell he casts on Sally, he can't cast that spell on me. So I look at Brock objectively and I'm like, bro, it says crypto influencer in his bio. Like, he's clearly a scam artist. That watch is like, I own actual Rolexes. That's a fake watch that he has. I looked up the license plate on his Lambo. It's a lease, bro. I'm telling you, this guy's he's lying to you about everything. And then I just go look up, do a little background check. Turns out he's got a wife and kids he's not telling you about.
You know what's funny is I've done that before, right? You read the situation for what it is, and the confirmation bias is so strong in the woman that she'll attack you for pointing out all the things that you see in this guy.
It's even worse. She'll dump him. She'll get back with him, and now she can never speak to you again because you called out the truth. She can never speak to him again. So here's the thing. The problem is this. Here's another issue that I got to bring up. This should be like a brother or like a strong male friend, or maybe your father that should doing this. The problem if it's a guy you used to date, then he looks like a snitch, and so that doesn't work. So that's also problematic. It's really not masculine for men to tell on each other. So that's why I don't get involved in that case. But you should at least have a strong female friend or grandma. The reason why grandma is so powerful is because grandma has gone through menopause, and grandma doesn't have these hot emotional oh my God, you're right, Billy's so fucking hot. Grandma has seen it all. She's done it all. You notice how grandma knows when granddaughter's pregnant way before granddaughter knows? Because grandma's seen some shit. She already knows. Ask grandma, what do you think about my boyfriend? But women just don't want to do this. If you actually had a third party examine your relationship where there's no emotion involved, you're completely dispassionate, and they can look past the words, that is the number one piece of advice that I can give to women. It is life-changing advice. I have girls come to me all the time, and the problem for me is if I know the dude, I'm never going to snitch on him. But what I am going to say is, what I am going to tell her is say something to the effect of, why don't you ask some of his exes or talk to some of his friends what he's like? And when she comes back to me, she's like, yeah, he doesn't want me talking to any of his friends. And he says that all of his exes are crazy. All of them are crazy? How many exes? 8. So he has 8 crazy exes. That sounds right to you? All of his exes are crazy? That makes sense to you. Bro, let me tell you something. Anybody out there, if you have had 10 roommates in a row that you think are assholes, you are the asshole. If you haven't figured this out, okay? You're the problem. And so I try to be friends with all my exes. I always want to leave them better. If any of my exes are watching this, you're all wonderful people. Put your mind to anything. You can accomplish anything. I wish you all nothing but the best. Right? I don't. None of them. All you guys are correct. All you guys are wonderful people. But the thing is, what you'll see often with women is they'll get into this situation where they're not being validated. They're dating men who are. I hate to say this because women are not gonna like this. You're choosing men that are out of your league, not for sex. You can definitely have sex with them. If a woman wants short-term sexual access, she can go to the top. She can get a guy who's a solidified 10. But if she wants commitment long-term, she needs to be more realistic about who she can attract or who she can get to commit. And because women are not realistic about that, what they do is they allow men to just be like, yeah, baby, whatever. And the other thing is, I'm sure you've seen this before, men aren't even gaslighting these women. I've been in situations before where I straight up tell a woman, I am not, look at me, I am not going to be your boyfriend. No matter what you say, I'm not going to be your boyfriend. Don't try to change me. Don't clean my house, make me food. Don't do any of the shit. You can do it if you want. I'm not going to be your boyfriend. I'm not interested in a relationship right now. And then they'll date you for 6 months. They'll keep sleeping with you, and they'll call you a narcissist because you don't want to be their boyfriend. even though you told them this. I see this all the time, especially when you're having really good sex with a woman. She starts to no, I can change him. I can change him. I can change him. Don't blame men when you've decided to try to change them. That's not the man's fault for not wanting to change. So that's another issue that I've seen that's happened frequently. And with men, the main problem, main problem with men, they all think they're worthless. Men think they're worthless now. I'm not talking about this top 10% of men. They don't think they're worthless. Most men, they give it a first date. Can please go on a date with me? Oh my God, I like you so much. Please, I'm so interested in you. Let me give your phone number. If I go and meet a girl in a venue, we're going to talk for a while before I even approach the idea of getting her phone number. She needs to show me she's interesting and interested enough to where I'm going to even, she has to earn a date for me. And I know, I'm sorry if that sounds horribly narcissistic. Men just give it up for free. They act like they're worthless. They walk up to women and show so much interest to women who've done nothing to earn it. These men act like they're completely and totally worthless. They subscribe to porn sites and the OnlyFans are paying all this money to these OnlyFans content. They're having these conversations with these girls. They're simping off on what's it called, Sex Panther and Eros and seeking arrangement, and they're paying women an allowance and they think they're good with women, all this kind of stuff. And why? Is because these men think they're worthless. Dudes, I'm here to tell you, you're not worthless. If you feel like you're worthless, if you really feel like you have to give women that much validation just because she has big boobies, you need to come see me, bro, because I'll help you. Bro, there's no reason you should ever feel that worthless, that you would do something like that. You following girls around the club, stalking girls, blah, blah, blah. Bro, I will, unless, I got a rule, very strong rule. I will never like a girl who's in a bikini photo on Instagram. I will never like a photo of a bikini, unless I'm in the photo, like one of my bikini competitions that I hosted. I don't like that. Non-contextualized, sexualized images on social media should not be liked by men. If she pays off her house, like that photo. If she has a daughter, like that photo. She gets married, like that photo. She graduates from college, like that photo. She takes a picture where she's mashing her boobs together in Cabo San Lucas or Dubai. Don't like that photo, guys. Stop liking those photos. Stop giving women attention for nothing. They did nothing to earn it, and you're acting like you're worthless. And because you act like you're worthless, then women are consistently taking advantage of you, and they also find you unattractive. So stop acting worthless. Women, start paying attention to his actions and not his words. Men, stop acting worthless. There you go. That would fix a lot. But no one's going to listen to me, so who knows?
Well, I'm sure at the very least, everyone has an opinion about you at this point in the conversation. So let's fill in the gap. What's the origin story? You're from East Dallas. You know, you went to UT and all the stuff. To talk a little bit about your upbringing. Your mom is Colombian. How does that work? How did you guys end up there?
So there's several different AI apps that you guys can use, and most people are using ChatGPT. Let me highly recommend Perplexity. Perplexity is probably the best one because it used ChatGPT and all these other ones. I was looking up myself last night because there was this girl I was on a date with, and I had Perplexity look her up, and it found out all this crazy data about her that she couldn't believe that Perplexity found. Perplexity.ai. And so I looked up myself. Guys, apparently Perplexity thinks that I'm 5'9" and I'm 36 years old. I'm 47 years old. I'm 6'1". Perplexity said that I was an Air Force pilot. I was an Air Force navigator. I was not a pilot. I was never said I was a pilot. There's all this crazy stuff. So I just want to straighten that out just before anybody thinks. I was born in 1977. I wasn't born in, I don't know when it said, 1984 or some shit. I forgot what it said. Anyway, I grew up in East Dallas. I grew up in a nice neighborhood, went to an all-white Baptist church, and I went to high school in a terrible neighborhood. Anyone from Dallas? I grew up in Lakewood. I went to high school at Woodrow Wilson during the crack epidemic in the 90s, the early 90s. So when I was going to high school, the Cowboys were winning Super Bowls, and that's when the Ghetto Boys, UGK, and 8 Ball and MJG were making records. And this was like the ultimate expression. Like the crime rate was outrageous in the city of Dallas because crack cocaine had flooded the city. And that's when I went to high school in East Dallas. Several of my friends were shot. Several of my friends went to jail for multiple decades for selling crack cocaine. This was my upbringing. I would go to home and I would go to an all-white Baptist church, Wilshire Baptist Church on like Mockingbird, and then I would go to high school just south of Abrams and Columbia, right there at Woodrow Wilson High School, and it was metal detectors, it was gang fights, all this kind of stuff. So I had a dichotomy growing up where I would play football, and all the guys that play football were either black or Hispanic, and I would go to church, and I did not see a single black or Hispanic person there. It was that's how my upbringing was. That's why I see both sides of it. Okay, when I went to college. I go to college and I go to UT Austin. And if you guys know, UT Austin is 98% white. And so I went to UT Austin. And when I was there, I joined an all-black Christian fraternity. So I was only surrounded by African-American men throughout my college experience, like the first 2 years.
Which one?
Gamma Phi Delta.
Okay.
Yeah, Gamma Phi Delta Christian fraternity. And yeah, it's GOD, Gamma Phi Delta, right? It's a little bit off. And I was doing step shows with Gamma Phi because I was everybody I grew up with that was African American. That's all I did. And so when I went to college, I was like, dude, there's no black people around here. So I found a black fraternity. I joined it. And it was like the only time I ever saw any black people was when I did that. So I graduate from college. I get out. MCI, WorldCom, and Enron go out of business. Do you remember when this happened? I mean, some of you probably not old enough to remember this. Enron they were cooking the books. They were taking all their losses and the liabilities, and they're putting them off on balance sheets of other minor companies. And then finally, once the chickens came to roost, Enron ends up going bankrupt. And MCI, WorldCom, which was doing their accounting, also goes bankrupt. And one of the major accounting firms, there were 5 major accounting firms. One of them went bankrupt too. I can't remember exactly the whole story. Anyway, before the crash of 2008, we had a crash of 2000. There was a dot-com bubble, and then there was a crash of MCI, WorldCom, and Enron. That's when I graduate from college. So I end up working at a strip club. And this is where like kind of my red pill moment happened, because when I was working at the strip club as a DJ, one of the things I noticed was all the things that my church, my family, and Disney told me about women. And then I would go into the locker room and I would just see these women who were at the time the most attractive women, physically most attractive women I've ever seen in my life, and consistently dealing with like spousal abuse, drug addiction. And then you saw like 7 of them fighting over the same worthless, broke dude. And I was like, what is going on here? This is not what I was taught. Now, obviously, I'm not trying to indicate that strip clubs are indicative of all women or even a small percentage of women. But women in general do have the same attraction triggers, regardless of whether a stripper or a virgin. They do have the same attraction triggers. By the way, men do too. This is a function of evolution.
A clarification. Yeah. How did you end up in a? I mean, you studied information systems. How did you end up in a strip club? Why did you go there and apply?
So I went and applied as a consultant to several different firms, and they all said we can't hire anyone because of there's a hiring freeze all over the country. So I went to GameStop, ironically. Yes, the same GameStop that was part of that whole short squeeze fiasco a couple years ago. I went to GameStop and I was going to sell video games because I love playing video games. There was no streaming jobs back there. Being a pro Madden player, which was my dream, I couldn't do that back then. It wasn't really like feasible for me to do that. So I ended up going to GameStop. They said they were going to hire me. Then they said they had a hiring freeze. I was the head door guy at a bar on 6th Street called Amazon Shot Bar. I think it's like 300 West 6th Street, somewhere around there, just 3 blocks west of Congress or east of Congress. And then one of the bartenders, she was getting her PhD from John Jay University in forensic psychology, and she was paying for it by stripping. And she came to me and she goes, hey, we need a new DJ over at Expose, which is on Congress. It's called Red Rose now. And it was like, we need a new DJ. So I go in there and I'm mortified. I'm like, dude, am I really going to have to tell my parents that I'm working in a strip club? I didn't want to do this. I have a degree from management information systems. I studied astrophysics in college, and I'm sitting here in the strip club and I'm like, it's kind of cool because there's like naked girls. But at the same time, I'm like, fuck, man, is this what my life has come to? Am I like this? So I get on the microphone and I suck for like the first 15 minutes. And then the guy gives me like a pattern to say. And by the end of the first hour, they just offer me the job. They're like, you are perfect for this job. And so what happens is, because I'm good enough to talk on the microphone for 8 hours uninterrupted, which is basically what I have to do working in the strip club. That's one of the reasons why later on, when I started the podcast and started doing all these other things, it was so comfortable for me, because I would talk on the microphone for 8 hours a day, introducing girls on stage. But the other thing that happened, like, this was kind of nuts. You know how you watch American football, obviously. Do you watch American football? Okay. So there's a head. Yeah. Okay. So, there's a head coach and there's an offensive coordinator, right? Mm-hmm. The head coach at a strip club is the general manager, or whoever the floor manager is that day. The offensive coordinator is the DJ.
The DJ.
I got to go back in the dressing room, like, ready, we're going to run this play. You're going to go here on this stage. You're going to do this. Ready, break. It really was like that for me. I was running the strip club like I was a football coach, because it's like, you don't have time.
As a DJ in a strip club, what does that pay?
I mean, okay, remember, guys, just think about inflation. I'm making about $45,000 a year, all cash. I'm sorry, $22,000 a year if you're the IRS listening right now. You're getting paid in tips. Now, guys, I want you to think about it. I know it doesn't sound like a lot of money right now. $45,000 a year in 1999 was a good amount of money for a single guy living in Texas with no state income tax. That was a good amount of money. And I had friends of mine who worked nighttime, like Friday night shifts, and they're making $100K a year. $100,000 a year in 1999, getting paid all in cash. That was good money back then, bro. And so the problem that would happen, like, is I was sitting there I met this one guy named Charlie Q, Danny Q, Stevie Q. I forgot what his name was. Something Q. Tony Q. I met Tony Q. He was at the men's club in San Antonio. For all I know, he's still at the men's club in San Antonio. Tony Q had been working at the men's club in San Antonio for 19 years, put 2 of his daughters through college. And it was like, this guy was morbidly obese. And it was very clear to me, because of how much money he was making, he was never going to leave this job. And I was sitting there and I was making good money. I was looking at stacks of cash in my apartment, taking it to the bank every week. And I remember thinking to myself, like, dude, if I don't do something, I'm going to end up as a DJ at a strip club for 25 years. And then 9/11 happened. And I watched 9/11 happen at the strip club. I went up early because we had like a manager's meeting. I was sort of a manager at the same time when I was a DJ. I was also like kind of a floor manager. It was like kind of a hybrid position I had. And I remember watching the towers fall, and the first tower fall, and I was like, man, what a tragedy. The second tower fell, and I got angry. I remember just getting angry, like, who the fuck did this to us? And 2 of my fraternity brothers from the Christian fraternity, Marcus Cole and Antonio Edwards, they join as one of them becomes an aviator in the Navy, and the other one becomes an aviator in the Marine Corps. And I end up talking to him about it, and I'm like, dude, screw this. I'm joining the Marine Corps. So I went to go join the Marine Corps. They had no officer spots open, and I ended up joining the Air Force.
Before we get to that part, there's a couple things I want you to talk about. You said you got red pilled, so talk about how that happened in that strip club, and then also talk a little bit about what your relationship was like with dating and girls. Were you getting a lot of girls?
Yes.
Were you fit as you were 6'1", and how?
Yeah.
And so we can understand that evolution as well.
Imagine a guy who goes to the gym all the time and eats like shit. That's the best way to say it. So definition of my upper body, but had this blob of fat around my waist. That's probably the best way. And I'm like that until I'm 33 years old. Until I really get my diet dialed in, was afraid to take my shirt off. Definitely not in shape, but I looked okay. The issue for me, the red pill moment, never forget it. It was a girl named Cassidy. That was her stripper name. She came into work and had a black eye. And all the girls, we're in the back, we're looking at her. This girl had a black eye. I'm 22 years old. I don't know how to deal with this. This is the first incident in my entire life dealing with any kind of domestic abuse or physical violence. My parents never laid a fucking finger on each other. They were together till the day my dad died. I was not aware of this. And I'm watching this girl, Cassidy, and I felt horrible for her. She just got punched in the face by her boyfriend. All the girls are consoling her. Girl, you can do better, blah, blah, blah. She's putting concealer on to cover up the fact that she has a black eye, right? That's not my red pill moment. My red pill moment was when she told us all that she was leaving him. And you know what happened next. Why don't you tell the audience what happened next? What do you think happened next?
She got back together with him.
And got punched in the eye. Got punched in the eye again.
Cried in your arms.
And got punched. This was in the dressing room. Got punched in the eye again. This is the first time I'd ever seen this. Now, this is a tragedy. Domestic abuse is a tragic event. But the problem is, from my standpoint, I'm supposed to believe that not only like no woman would ever allow this. Like, why would this happen? Why would a woman stay with a guy who hit her? Like, it didn't make any sense to me. No one gave me information for me to understand what was going on here. That was the first thing. But the second thing, that was the point at which I was disillusioned, not red pilled. When I was red pilled happened because the most attractive girl at the strip club, her name was Joy. Never forget this. Joy loved to flirt with me. Joy was married. Joy loved to flirt with me because she knew that if she flirted with me, like she would just, and she tipped me well too, because she made more money than anyone else. Joy like legitimately could have been a playmate. And every strip club has one girl that's like this. We call them Shaq because they just dominate all the other girls. Like they're just so much hotter than the other girls. Joy would come. Because Joy was trying to get I think she was trying to get a real estate license. She had a different schedule. So she would work day shift with me every once in a while. And she loved me because I would always play her favorite songs. And of course, like I'm 22. Joy is the most beautiful woman anyone had ever seen. I couldn't believe how hot this girl was. And she would come sit on my lap in the DJ booth. She'd put her shoes on. She would flirt with me for hours. And I was like in love with this girl. I was like, couldn't believe how hot she was. But she was married. And I was like, yeah, this is never going to happen. Joy would always complain about Ryan. Ryan was the other daytime DJ, and she fucking hated Ryan. She would talk about Ryan was mean to her. Ryan was so ugly to her. Ryan would never fucking play the song she wanted. She would argue with Ryan. She would tell me how arrogant it was, and she'd tell me how much she loved me. Michael, you're so sweet to me. And I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. We don't see Joy for like a month. Joy comes back in the strip club, and I'm talking to her. I was like, hey, what's going on? How's everything going? She goes, oh, me and my husband broke up. It's like, oh, that's crazy. That sucks. And I'm like, man, finally, I got a chance with Joy. She sits on my lap every day. I finally have a shot with Joy. This is finally going to happen. And I go, what's been happening? Goes, well, it's been rough because I've been moved all my stuff into Ryan's house.
And he was a little dude too, right, Ryan?
No, that's a different story about the girl who shit on herself. That's a different. So you're complaining a different story. That's Johnny who was shorter.
Okay.
She literally, Ryan was shorter than me, but like the thing is, like the guys she complained about to me every day at work, they got engaged not even a year later. And that was my red pill moment. That was actually my red pill moment where I was
So
like,
that taught you what? Don't
that's
believe what people say.
yes,
Look at what they
only
do.
pay attention to their actions, and that men who a lot of times women will again, dude, we don't complain about things that don't affect us. We only complain about things that affect us. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like you and me
Mhm.
did not wake up this morning being like, man, I cannot believe the amount of inflation with the Indian rupee. We don't give a fuck about that because it doesn't affect us. When women complain about men who are players, why are they complaining about men who are players? Are they complaining about men who are players because they don't sleep with them or because they do sleep with them? And that was something that I started to learn. I was just like, well, a lot of times women will state something emphatically and the opposite is true. What she was expressing to me, not that Ryan was an asshole. What she was expressing to me is that she was attracted to him. But she didn't know how to manifest and she didn't know how to express that she was attracted to him other than by saying he's an asshole because the dissonance. She's being treated poorly by a guy and she's married and she's becoming super attracted to him. So the only way for her to complete the dissonance circle is for her to tell me that he's an asshole. And I didn't understand that. In fact, I didn't even understand it after it happened. It took years for me to figure out what was going on. But one thing I did know, whatever Disney, my church, and my family was telling me wasn't true. Like that, their belief is I'm just going to get a master's degree and get a good job and I deserve a good woman that God is going to send me. I figured that shit out real quick. That wasn't true. And so that was my first red pill moment. The second one that was one of the ones you were referring to. I was the hottest girl. There was another strip club in Austin. This girl named Christina. I'm still friends with. She's one of my good friends. I love her to death. Christina and I went on a date. We bumped into each other behind one of the nightclubs, and we were talking forever. We just started making out. We were in this alley, and I was like, "This is the hottest girl. It's green eyes, insane body, like curly blonde hair. She was so insanely hot." So we hang out a couple times. I get her number. And we go on a date. I take her on a couple of dates, and I'm just like super fucking try hard. I don't know what I'm doing with this girl. I'm 21. She is the hottest. She's easily one of the top 5 hottest girls in all of fucking Travis County. This girl is so beautiful. And we hang out a couple times, and she tells her friend, she's like, I just don't see Michael that way. I just want to be friends with him. And it was like kind of heartbreaking, but at the same time, she was so far out of my league. It wasn't that big of a deal. Here's the part you were talking about, Light. A couple weeks later, I'm working at Amazon Shop Bar. This is before I worked at the strip club. She walks in with another dude. She has the audacity to come into my bar with another dude. And this guy is 6 inches shorter than me. His name's Dion. He's another good friend of mine. And Dion looks like I'm just looking at this guy, and I can't express to you how confident and cocky this guy looked. I cannot, like, this guy looked like he was ready to fight all the time. He had this air of insane level of confidence about him. And I'm 6'1", and this guy, I'm not kidding, is maybe 5'7", 5'8". And he's walking around with this stunning blonde all through my bar. And I'm like, what the? Like, not only did she friend zone me, she had the audacity to bring this other dude to my bar. And I'm not kidding. 3 weeks later, she told me she was pregnant by him. She had her first kid with this dude. And that was another situation where I was like, okay, I was being taught one thing to be this like good, wholesome, God-fearing. I remember we prayed before we ate, all this shit. And then afterwards, then seeing who she ended up like having a kid with and just coming to realization, okay, now I understand what I was being taught isn't true. It doesn't mean you need to be an asshole, but the guys who held their own frame and maintained a certain level of like boundaries, those are the ones women found more attractive. And I didn't know that at the time. And no one wanted to teach me that. And teaching men that today even comes off as toxic. And it's not toxic. It's just true. Women complain often about like patriarchal attributes of a society. But the problem is patriarchy is basically manifest through male aggressiveness, assertiveness, and ambition. Well, when women are surveyed in every society, guess what attributes they find most attractive in men? Aggressiveness, assertiveness, and ambition. If women keep rewarding aggressive, assertive, ambitious men with sex, they're going to have aggressive, assertive, ambitious babies. So if women keep rewarding the attributes that they complain about with sex, the society is obviously going to get more and more patriarchal. And women hate this discussion because what I'm doing is basically blaming women for why there is a patriarchy. And I'm not blaming anyone. It's just a function of evolution. But what happens as men is women will say things like, what will they say? I want a man who'll buy me flowers. No, you don't. If there was a man you weren't attracted to who bought you flowers and he brought flowers to your work, you would think he was a creeper. I want a man to be more vulnerable. Sure, I'll have a homeless guy walk up to you. I'll film it. A homeless guy walk up to you and be like, oh my God, I'm having like a rough time right now, like emotionally, like I'm not really dealing with this whole homeless thing very well. Your vagina is not going to get wet because a homeless guy came up to you was more vulnerable.
They mean
women
they want Ryan Gosling to bring the
yes,
flowers.
Yes, it's so insane.
Vulnerable.
Like, why women? Just please add this one caveat to your speech. You don't want a nice guy. You don't want a man to buy you flowers, and you don't want a man to be more vulnerable to you. You want a man you're attracted to buy you flowers. You're a man you're attracted to be more vulnerable to you. A man you're attracted to be nice to you. If you would just say that. But the problem is it's trying to explain to a fish what water is. Women cannot conceive of the idea of being attracted to anyone they're not attracted to. Like for men, we know every guy here who has even the slightest bit of game, you've met a girl who wasn't attracted to you. You've done a couple of things, and then all of a sudden she became attracted to you. But in her mind, she was always attracted. They always reverse analyze this thing, and they're like, oh, I was always attractive. No, you weren't. He did a couple things. You saw his ex-girlfriend. You saw how other people reacted to him. The Lamborghini pulled up, whatever it was. You weren't attracted to him, then you became attracted to him. As men, we know we can generate attraction with women. Women, because they're just the concept of generating attraction with women is so foreign to them. If you guys want to see a great example of this, if you have a girlfriend who's bisexual and you guys pick up women together, watch how she has no idea what she's doing. Like when she goes and tries to talk to women, she has no clue because she's never been rejected before. So she's not aware of how to approach a woman. So it's one of the craziest things ever. If you've ever seen a bisexual woman try to pick up a woman, it's so weird because she doesn't know what to do because she's never generated attraction with a woman. She's just been hot her whole life.
You only date bisexual women, so you've seen this a lot.
Well, yes, that's not true that I only date bisexual women, but I tend to end up with bisexual. Yes, that's probably a more accurate way to say it. I tend to end up with bisexual. But the reason why is because bisexual women see all the women in my life and they tend to be more attracted to me, if that makes any sense. Like bisexual women want to date.
You also said it allows you to be more honest than you're able to be otherwise.
I would prefer to date a woman who dates women with me together. Now, I would say previously that was a career ender, that was like a non-negotiable. It's not, because my business means so much to me now. I could be monogamous with one woman, but she would have to be, the thing for me is I watch Layla and Alex Hormozy, the way Layla Hormozy supports Alex's business, and those people are going to become billionaires together. I would need that kind of relationship for me to be monogamous with one woman. I would need a woman who's so down to actually help grow the empire. That's the only way I'm going to be monogamous with one woman. Otherwise, I'm probably, there's so many. I live in Las Vegas. There's so many women to choose from here that are comfortable seeing other women that I'm probably not going to just give that up right now. That's it. So, it's just people have different preferences. You ladies, you want a guy who's tall. Okay. I want a woman who's not judgmental. That's it. We can all have our picks.
All right. So you're going into the military and you wanted to be a Marine, but you ended up in the Air Force. Mm-hmm. You learned a lot about leadership and accountability.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that was probably one of the most important things. We just came out with a video yesterday. It's so funny. If I do videos on women being delusional,
I love your walking videos, by the way. I saw the one you put out.
Oh, you liked them, Osmo? Yeah.
Yeah.
If I make videos about women being delusional, tens of thousands of views. People go nuts over those videos. I put out a video yesterday about being a great leader and how it actually helps you get women. No crickets. Guys, let me explain something to you. I'm explaining this to you. Any of you guys out there that are listening to this and you're like, Michael, I want tons of options with women. I want tons of options when it comes to where I can work, tons of options of hiring employees. The number one, the most underrated quality you can learn about is leadership. If you can be an incredible leader, you will get all the options you could ever want. Being able to lead is so, again, consider a leadership. I'll give you a couple of examples. One example of leadership is you work at a company where you let all of your employees know, hey, listen, I'm here to serve you. I'm here to take responsibility when things go wrong. When stuff goes wrong, there's going to be an open line of communication. You're never going to have to fight to get a hold of me, and I'm always here to make a decision. Your employees are going to fight and die for you. They're going to legitimately want to be working at a company where they get clear, concise, direct leadership. There's no lack of communication, or there's no indirect or passive-aggressive communication. That's a great place to work. So that's an example of you being a leader, making your company better. But here's another thing. For me, just imagine Sarah comes into town. She's in Vegas. She's having a birthday party. And she's like, well, we're in town. We don't know what to do. Done, girl. I got you. You call up a couple of hosts. You get her a comp at Poppy Steak. She goes on stage at Live to go see John Summit. And then afterwards, you go to an after party at some other place. You got the whole thing comped. You didn't pay for any of it. And when you show up, you're like, ladies, get in the truck, or get in the whatever, the van, the truck, the party bus. You just lead the whole interaction. Next thing you know, you're a dude that shows up at clubs with 20 or 30 girls. There's no more dating at that point. Women are fighting for you at that point. Just because you learn how to put a little fucking bass in your voice and actually tell people, guys, we're going to be here at this time. and then we're going to go here. Just a little bit of accountability, a little bit of like subject matter expertise, and a little bit of confidence. You do that, and all of a sudden, like this is, if you guys want examples of it, just go to my Instagram. You can see pictures of me with like hundreds of girls. And the reason why is because I take leadership responsibility in all of these social interactions, just like I did when I was an officer in the military. When you do that, it's incredible. Like, again, dude, I host bikini competitions. I host these photo shoots. We'll have like these mansion photo shoots. I'll tell all the girls to be here at this time. All the photographers will be at this time. I put everyone in the room. I give a speech. I tell these photographers, you're going to go over here and shoot with these girls. You're going to shoot with these girls. Then you guys are going to swap. I do this. And at the end, the girls are asking me for my number. They're like, they want to hang out with me. They're liking all my photos. And guys don't understand. It's like, well, because I'm a leader, what was I able to do? I was able to show masculine, attractive attributes without showing intent. I was able to passively show that I am an attractive masculine man without giving any intent. So now she's the one who's chasing. Let me tell you something. It's 100 times easier when she's the one who's chasing. And so that's why I tell guys all the time, being an incredible leader is the most underrated attribute when it comes to dating. Also, and then the last one is, if you're dating a girl, and like last night, we took this girl to Mastro's. When we went to Mastro's, she didn't have to order shit. She didn't have to worry about shit. She didn't have to worry about where to park. Everything was handled effortlessly by me. I didn't even have to look at the menu. I had it memorized. I've been to Mastro so many times. Everything was flawless. She had an incredible time. She's like hugging on me. She's like, oh, she had such a stressful week. And she was like, when I'm with Michael, I don't have to worry about anything because he takes the lead. That's it. And she's been writing me all day. She's like, I had the most incredible time last night. She didn't have to think about anything because I led the whole way. Okay. And so that's the thing, guys. Learning how to be an unbelievable leader is incredible. So I would recommend Jocko Willick's book, Extreme Ownership and Dichotomy of Leadership. I would also recommend, not necessarily for leadership, but more for like motivation, I would recommend David Goggins' first two books, Can't Hurt Me and Never Finished. I would recommend those books as well. But the leadership dynamic is so incredibly underrated. I'm the only person in this dating manosphere space who teaches leadership. I think maybe MLD does. I'm not positive, but I think I'm the only one who teaches it in this space. And in the e-com space, there's not a lot of leadership. There's no dating. So basically what I did was take the whole, become professionally viable, become a great leader, a communicator, networker, and the dating space. And I put it all together in one program, which is my program, Men of Action, the most comprehensive male self-improvement program ever created. No disrespect to Tony Robbins. My program is more comprehensive than anyone who's ever created a program like this.
Hey, really quickly, if you like this content or if you don't like it, let me know down in the comments, because your likes and comments are going to help me learn what you want more of. And then that way I can keep bringing you the good stuff. All right. Thanks so much for your feedback, and back to the show. You have a lot of women who would hear this and they'll think, oh, this guy is, working all these angles and using all these tactics. And I just want someone who's romantic and someone who's just,
Must be
being
nice.
natural.
Must be nice, isn't it? Really? You want someone who's just natural? You're telling me you're hot and you just go to a date and it just works out for you? That's crazy. You're telling me, honey, you go to a bar and you just never have to pay for drinks? Is it because of your charisma? Is that what you think it is? Like, must be nice. Must be nice to not have to think about shit when you go on a date. That must be incredible.
So are you saying, are you suggesting that that they just don't understand that men in general have to approach, again, this is evolutionary psychology. Men have to come up with tactics for hunting and making sure they procure whatever resources that they need.
Men have to come up with tactics to compete. So hypergamy is not women comparing women to men or comparing men to women. Hypergamy is women comparing men to other men. Women don't understand the level of competition. Like when my girlfriend would tell me, hey, let's just stay in and watch Netflix. I'm like, someone's trying to take my business. Like I can't stay in and watch Netflix. Like someone literally wants me, like new videos about me came out. Like I have to work. I don't have the option. It's like, let's just eat this food. I'm like, I'm 47. Like you're 20, you're in your early 20s and you're stunning. You can eat whatever you want. I can't do that. I can't live like you. I have to compete every day to maintain where I am in the world. Sorry if that seems ugly or terrible to you. Ladies and gentlemen who are listening to this, you guys are going to go to a therapist. Women often do have a burden of performance, but they don't have to have a burden of performance. There's a world that you can live in as a woman where you can be very, very attractive and have a man take care of you. I'm not saying that's always the case, but women don't have to have a burden of performance. Women can be the passenger and they can be the captain. Men can only be the captain. There's no reality where a man doesn't have a burden of performance. I don't care who you are. Unless you're a trust fund kid or insanely good looking or talented, you have a burden of performance all the time as men. So if you go to a therapist and your therapist tells you to be more expressive and vulnerable, if he does not also include the fact 95% of therapists under the age of 30 are female. Forgot to mention that. So when you go to your therapist, if she doesn't tell you that you have a burden of performance, fire your therapist. As a man, you always have a burden of performance. Never forget that. No matter how special, no matter how many breathing exercises you do, if you go to goat yoga and do aspirations telling yourself that you're enough, no matter what you want to believe about yourself, I got bad news for you. None of you guys are watching this. None of you are enough. None of you. If you can sit there and say all the vows you want at your wedding about through rich or poor and sickness and health, just look at the data. It's very clear that's not the case. As soon as you lose your job, the likelihood of her getting divorced from you, like, triples, quadruples. If you don't believe me, ask James Sexton about this. But the question you were asking before, there's an unbelievable video. This girl, she goes off and she takes her guy's male dating profile over. So this girl's cute. I say this girl's probably like an 8. And she says, I'm going to take this profile of this guy, Steve. Steve's a 6. And I go and I take Steve's dating profile. Steve tells me it's impossible for him to get a date on this dating profile. And it's like, he's a pretty average looking guy. I'm going to take over his dating profile. It's like, Steve, I don't know what you're talking about. I go on dating profiles. I get dates all the time. I'm a woman. It's easy for me to get dates. She takes the dating profile and she's like, after 3 days, this is her words. I'll send you the video. She's like, I'm starting to hate women. It's like, I'm having to right swipe on 2s and 3s and they're rejecting me. It's like, I don't understand. I'm an average looking guy. I should be able to get some matches on a dating app, but I can't get any. And she's like, the woman on the thing, she's like, I'm starting to cry. She's like, I literally feel horrible about myself because I'm sitting there. I had no idea how incredibly mean women are to average looking men. I had no idea it was this hard for guys to get a date. And that's the difference. It's like women totally do not understand the plight of most men. What they do is they look at these couple of guys who had sex with them on the first date and then never called them back. They think that all men are like this. I remember one time I was doing a show in Miami and she's like, well, the problem is the men in Miami, all they care about is their Bugattis and all they care about is all the money they have. And I was like, honey, less than 0.1% of men who live in Dade County have a Bugatti. And she just couldn't conceptualize because the only men she saw had Bugattis. That's all she could see. She didn't see the average man she left swiped on in the dating app as even being a man. She didn't see it. There's another video I think is phenomenal. So that one video I told you about, the woman's using a male dating profile and she's like crying because she realizes how mean men are to women. The second one was there was a woman, she went undercover as a man. She started dressing like a man, talking like a man. She did this for like 6 or 7 years. And at the end, she committed suicide because she didn't realize how average men. I'm talking, guys, ladies, I'm not talking about the suave guy who picked you up at the club. I'm talking about the plumber. Okay. I'm talking about the construction worker who works all night and barely makes more than minimum wage. I'm talking about the dude who works at KFC. I'm not talking about the good looking guy who had sex with you on the first date and never call you back. I'm talking about the low end dude. I'm talking about the 5'5" Filipino cashier that you wouldn't even look at twice. I'm talking about him. She didn't understand how hard it was for the average man to just get along, to get any recognition from women at all. And I wouldn't have 3,000 clients in my program if what I was saying wasn't true. These men were just totally being ignored. And they were being ignored by the Harris campaign, which is the reason why they got blown out by the Trump campaign, is because they ignored men. They decided, you know who we need speaking at our campaigns? Megan Thee Stallion and fucking Cardi B and Glorilla. Cardi B saying, well, these are her words, not my words. Broke boys, they don't deserve no pussy. I know that's right. Did she say that or not? She's saying broke men don't even deserve sex. She said that, and you're sitting there. You're like, oh no, it's men who are the problem. Ladies, I'm sorry. It's just like these unrealistic, irrational beliefs that you have towards men. If you can't get them under control, we're going to end up with a negative birth rate in this country. And we're already headed in that direction. It's just, I'm not calling you delusional. I'm not trying to call you names. We know why these things are happening. They're happening because of functions and evolution and hypergamy. I understand that. But at some point you have to grasp reality and say, hey, you know what? It really is shitty. Look, here's the way to fix it. If you guys have a brother, or you said before, Light, about talking about if they had a son. The other one is if you have a brother or if you have a son, what advice would you give your brother or son? Then you see women starting to say, so for instance, it's like, hey, ladies, so you have a high body count. Do you think men should date you? Women are going to be like, my body count doesn't matter. My body count is my decision. He shouldn't know anything about that. And then you say, okay, you have a son. Your son comes to you and tells you that he wants to go off and marry. He's 22. He wants to marry a male strip or female stripper that he met. And this girl does porn on the side and fucks other dudes. Do you think she should marry him? And all of a sudden, click, like her brain mechanisms change. And she's like, oh no, that's my offspring. It's like, oh no, she's not good enough for him. It's like, wait, but you're good enough for some other guy, but this girl isn't good enough for your son. When you express it like that, then all of a sudden she comes to the realization, oh, it's probably not a good idea for her to date him, or for him to date her. And so, I mean, that's where we get, the conflict and the delusion. I'm not saying, look, women have it hard in certain arenas. They absolutely do. Walking around by yourself at night, men can accost you, they can assault you. All this kind of stuff happens. Like, you have to be in fear. When you go on a date with a guy you don't know, he's bigger and stronger than you. I'm not saying that women don't have certain things that are hard. What I am telling you that right now in 2024, there's a massive group of men, at least a third of men, that are being totally left behind in the dating market, totally left behind. And what they're being told is that they need to wait until these women get through running through Chad and Tyrone in their 20s and just have all these dudes fuck them and leave them. And then when these women turn 30, then they're ready to settle down with this beta male who's just been sitting there waiting for 10 years for his wife. And no, the problem with that is those marriages end in divorce. I would not wait for those things. As a man, you should not be waiting. You should be leveling up, and you should not accept anything other than her best. If a woman was down to do something with Drake, then and she's not down to do it with me. This incredible video of this one guy talking to Future and said, "What do you think about the fact that Sierra is making Russell Wilson wait before they have sex?" He goes, "Did she make you wait?" And he goes, "Never." He goes, God. She said God told her to make Russell wait. And Future goes, "God didn't tell me that." He goes, "That's not what God told me." He goes, "No, we had sex and then we prayed about it afterwards. We prayed." I was like, it's so clear that Sierra had one set of rules for Future and a different set of rules for Russell Wilson. And my whole thing is, gentlemen, I'm not going to accept a double standard. Whatever she would be willing to do for Machine Gun Kelly or Drake or whoever, she's going to be willing to do that for me, or there's no deal. That's the way I look at it.
I feel like just like how men have to like grow up and learn these things, however they learn them, women also have to grow up and learn that their history actually does matter when it comes to equality.
You're down to have, you're down to have a threesome with some guy you met at Coachella, but you're not down to have a threesome with your boyfriend. Sorry, honey. Not if I'm a man, I do not accept that. That's exactly right. Yeah.
I want to talk more about this, but there's a couple more pieces from your backstory that I still want to go over. One being your dad getting killed in 2006 and how that impacted you. And the other being, you said the greatest dating book you ever read, which I found completely surprising, by Eckhart Tolle.
$100 million author.
I didn't know he wrote.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, Eckhart Tolle did not write the best dating book, but he wrote the book that probably helped me the most at becoming a more attractive version of myself. Eckhart Tolle, for those of you who don't know, like if you ever read The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, Eckhart Tolle is basically writing the same book. It's called The Power of Now, but The Power of Now is more like woo-woo, whereas Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck is not woo-woo at all. Basically the concept of like being a gratitude and present moment awareness, it made me a more attractive person because I was able to stay in the present moment while I was talking to other people. The thing about my father, that's where I got into self-help, was because my dad dies in May of 2006. Right after my dad dies, I get deployed to the military 6 weeks after my dad dies. I had to go back and testify in the case against the woman who ran him over, the drunk driver. And then I got sent to the Middle East right afterwards. When I'm in the Middle East, two things happen. The Dallas Mavericks go up 2-0 on the Miami Heat and end up losing 4 in a row and losing the championship. And I'm watching this happen like live after my dad died. For some of you, it's not that big of a deal, but for me, I'm a Mavericks. My first love in the world is the Dallas Mavericks. And then my girlfriend starts running off with some other dude. To be technical, she wasn't officially my girlfriend, but I was nuts about her. And we were sleeping together. And then I leave to go to the Middle East. And while I'm there, she just stops writing me. And then I check on MySpace and I see her with some Marine that she's dating now. And she doesn't tell me fuck all about it. And it was just like, my girl left me. My dad died. I'm stuck here in the Middle East. There's no girls around. And I started going through super high levels of cortisol. I remember I started having breakouts. I started having like allergic reactions on my scalp. I developed psoriatic arthritis during this time period. I come back and I'm just dealing with so much stress. And this one guy recommends for me to read The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Changed my life. It absolutely changed my life. Once I could just give up once I had this reality that no one really cared that much about me, like it wasn't that big of a deal. Like I don't have to keep this facade up to try to impress other people. It was so incredible when you realize that. And then later on, I made a video that got 33 million views where I basically stated, like, you guys live in a country where a man fucked a porn star while his wife was pregnant. We elected him president of the United States. You live in a country where a woman transitioned to become a man, runs over someone and kills them, and then Caitlyn Jenner is named Woman of the Year 4 months later. You live in a country where they make a movie about a dude who commits securities fraud, does a bunch of cocaine, has sex with a bunch of prostitutes. He punches his wife in the stomach, kidnaps his own kid. They make a movie about him called The Wolf of Wall Street. You guys love the shit out of this dude. You live in a country where Colonel Oliver North sells munitions and ammo to another country, going subverting federal law. He's disgraced for it, and now he's a contributor on Fox News. You live in a country where O.J. Simpson gets offered to do like deals for fantasy football podcasts after stabbing people 56 times. You live in I just went down the list of like all these examples. You live in a country like after Adam 22 and Sneeko and Aiden Ross, when people saw their girlfriends having sex with other dudes, with Aiden Ross and Sneeko, their girlfriends were cheating on them. They became more popular. After people found out their girlfriends were cheating on them, they became more popular. And you're sitting there worried, like you think people care about you. No one cares about you. Like when you think about the thing with the Paul brothers, like defrauding all those people with that crypto coin, that the whole pump and dump. And then afterwards, Jake Paul getting his house raided by the FBI. Well, he's done after that, right? No, he made $40 million fighting Mike Tyson. And you guys watched it. You guys all watched it on Netflix. You looked at Mike Tyson's bare ass on Netflix. And the point I'm trying to make is nobody pays for shit. There's no consequences for your actions. No matter what you post, no matter how controversial you are, there's no consequences for it whatsoever. Like, Andrew Tate gets canceled on every social media platform and makes more money and becomes even more popular. Like, I'm sorry, I'm done. Like, President Trump loses his Twitter account after the whole thing that happened on January 6th, and now he's more popular and gets reelected. I don't know what you guys expect. Like, you guys keep thinking like you're going to screw up and then you're going to have to pay for it because your parents give a shit about what you did, or like you did something that pissed off someone at work. No. I have never said more crazy shit in my life. I've never had more people angry at me, and I've never got more job offers in my entire life than I do right now. I get job offers like once a week for people to come work on their social media or whatever, that people pay me to come out and speak at different events. Again, I'm saying more bombastic shit and making more people angry at me than ever at any point in my life, and I get more job offers than ever at any point in my life. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry to be the one to break this to you, but the reality of the situation is the more attention you get in general, like if you or I wanted to get in front of a venture capitalist, let's just say you and I studied venture capital in college. Let's say you and I went to Berkeley and we wanted to get in front of venture capitalists. Who could get in front of a venture capitalist faster? You and me or Jake Paul?
Or Hawk Tua.
Or Hawk Tua girl. Who could get in front of a venture capitalist faster? Hawk Tua girl or us?
Hawk Tua.
Okay, why? This woman sit there and described how she gives a blowjob and she is more famous, makes more money, and like she's sitting there talking about getting a blowjob. And I promise you, didn't she take a picture with President Trump the other day? It's like, well, you guys need to understand, no one pays for shit anymore. You know what could never happen? Like never is a guy get convicted of 33 felonies and then get elected to become president of the United States. That could never happen, right? Because the world is fair. There's no way a guy could be convicted of 33 felonies and then be elected president of the United States, except that's exactly what happened. In fact, I'll tell you, when the Southern District of New York indicted him on those 33 felonies, all they did was make Trump more popular. All they did was make him more popular. So you get indicted and convicted on 33 felonies and you're more popular, and you guys are sitting there watching here and you're afraid to post a meme on social media because you're afraid of what your coworkers are going to think. No one pays for shit. And that is what I learned in The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. That's what I learned in The Power of Now. Like, seriously, no, the world is not about me. It was Neil Strauss who told me this. The world is not about me. The world has no responsibility to make me happy. The world has no responsibility to conform to my ego. It's going to do whatever it does, and I need to accept things exactly the way they are. Exactly the way they are. I had a girl come on my show.
The point is not to try to be audacious. The point is just to be yourself. Just be 100% yourself and speak your truth.
Well, see, I'm not even speaking my truth. I'm speaking the truth. Everything I brought up to you, none of it's subjective. Like, he did get elected president, right? What I said before about women cheating in a relationship, have 230% more sexual partners. These are objective truths. Like, the reason why I get so much hate is because I'm hard to argue with, because I back up everything I'm saying with data. And people get so angry with this whenever I do this because it gives them so much of a smaller spot to attack. And they think that I'm not making this personal. So I don't know why other people have to make the attack so personal. So
Who
going back to what I said,
primarily is getting angry with you?
it's either blue pill content creators or the bigger one are other dating coaches. Other dating coaches are the ones that like they spend all day just trashing my stuff because I tell them that men and women can be friends and that social circle is better than doing like direct game cold approach. A
So it's not
few
feminists. It's not really
yeah,
women.
there's
It's mostly men.
there's a few who heart you bro feminists, but the problem is I do get a few of them that say that, but mostly the worst of all like are the guys who like they want to try to impress women by posting these like super white knight blue pilled really cucky comments, and they'll write some nonsense on there. It's like men enjoy more sexual variety than women do. That's just truth. It's the average man enjoys the same amount of sexual variety as the top 1% of women. There's been multiple studies on it. It's easily replicatable. I'll say something like that, and you'll have some like blue pill fucking weirdo in the comments being like, I only enjoy sex with my lawfully married wife. Why would you ever want sexual variety when you can have monogamous sex with your wife? And that's all any man should want. If you don't want that, you're a fucking loser. And like, we'll see comments like that. Like, I'll get those comments all the time. I'm like, bro, like the girls in the comments are not going to fuck you. Like, I don't know why. I don't know who you're performing for, but it's not working. And that, so we'll get that. I'll get that one a whole lot. Yeah. That kind of stuff. I mean, I'll get a bunch of hate from that, but the main ones are like black pill or guys or incels who are really angry by the fact that I'm able to take like short Indian men and get them laid. They really hate that because they've been believing their whole life that the world is only about looks and money. And I disprove that. And so my very existence is problematic to them. Guys who do direct game, they have a huge problem with the stuff I teach. Because I teach guys how to like show massive levels of attractive qualities without showing intent to women. They hate that because the belief is from the pickup communities. I go to a woman, I let her in. It's like man to woman. Blow me or blow me out. I'm attractive. You need to be with me because I'm an alpha male. And I'm like, dude, you look like a super tryhard weirdo when you act like that. And they hate that. They hate that I disprove their beliefs. So those are most of the hate I get. It's not as many women. I think a lot of women, if they listen to me in a long form, they have a hard time disagreeing with a lot of stuff that I'm saying. You see the studies that show where women who are politically progressive, who are liberal, they tend to want to be with more conservative men because conservative men take care of the bill. They open the door. They go to the gym. They have a deeper voice. They lead in a relationship. They act in a more chivalrous manner. Whereas the blue pill liberal guys that they're with are like physically weak, don't pick up the check. Like there's very different where women are themselves politically progressive or even feminist, but they enjoy having sex and dating men who are conservative. So I think that's another example of it.
Yeah, I mean, when I ran the ARC episode, a lot of the informal polling that I did, a lot of women really actually loved just
Yeah.
the honesty of his approach, and so that was really
Yes.
interesting to see.
Yeah, but the problem, the disconnect is, hold on, the disconnect is this. In their mind, when they hear ARC saying, I'm attracted to you, I would like to have sexual intercourse with you, like 5 minutes after they meet them, in the woman's mind, it's Brad Pitt who's saying that to her.
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand? Like that's the reason the women were agreeing with ARC because in their mind, it's Taye Diggs and The Rock coming up and saying, I want sex with you. And the women feel flattered by attractive men being direct. When it's put into practice and average looking men go hyper direct with women, it doesn't work 99% of the time. But the women can't conceive of an unattractive man going direct like that. Does that make sense?
Right.
When it's the Indian guy
100%.
going, I want to see Bob's and vagine. When that happens, they don't see, that's what ARC is talking about. They don't see it as attractive because they forget that part. They can only envision hyper attractive men coming up and being direct. That's why they agree with what ARC is saying.
From an evolutionary psychology point of view, I mean, it seems pretty clear. Okay, men, you can work out, you can become a better leader, you can take more self accountability, et cetera, et cetera. I think we all get that. What can women do who are not the top 1% physically
You don't have to
attraction?
be in the
What
top
can they
1%.
do?
You don't have to be in the top 1%. Yeah. So it's this is a little bit if you think that this is bigoted or misogynistic, then blame Charles Darwin. Don't blame me. Women a lot of times like women know this. You go through puberty and you get a ton of attention from men. You have value and you didn't work to get this value. Women a lot of times the answer is preserve your value. Like don't have a digital footprint of you being alone in Dubai. Like don't cover the front of your body with tattoos. Like don't you understand what I'm saying? don't have a digital footprint of you dating one man after another, or videos and photos of you getting drunk or high.
You
Like, don't
with
leave a
Chris
digital.
Brown paying him
Yeah,
$1,000.
don't pay Chris Brown $1,200 for Chris Brown to grab your ass. Like, preserve your value. Instead of men, we have to build our value. That's just the truth. I'm sorry. You can disagree with me as much as you want. In every society, 37 culture study done by Dr. David Buss in 1989, in every society, as men grew, climbed the socioeconomic ladder, the difference in age between them and their wife increased. Meaning, as men became higher and higher status, they started dating younger and younger women. So the answer is, the point at which you are most likely to lock down the alpha male is in your early to mid 20s. And a lot of women really don't like to hear that, because the average age of first marriage in the United States is 30. And so this is the point where Orion Taraban puts it the best. On average, this is the point at which men waiting for sex actually is worth it. Like at 29, that's the point. And that's when most women get married at 29. Most women will try to get married at 29. This is the point at which the deal is good for high status men. It's like, okay, I'm going to wait for sex to be with this 29-year-old woman. But the reality is, like, that's the point at which she tries to cash out of the dating market. And in reality, she could have had a better man had she chosen a little bit earlier. That's it. Or preserve, maybe even not chosen, but a little earlier, but preserved her value. Like, ladies, I'm sorry, no guy finds it, like, normal men do not find attractive tattoos on the front of your thighs, some dude's name on your cheek, on your forehead, tattoos in between your boobs, excessive drug use, vaping. Men do not find that attractive, because we're going to have a baby with you. Like, I'm not looking to have a baby with a woman who has hepatitis. Like, I look, because she's got multiple tattoos. I'm sorry. I know that comes off as super judgmental, but like, you can keep telling me I'm wrong, and then you're going to keep wondering why you're having a hard time dating. Preserve your, like, I would tell women, preserve your value. Just like as a man, I don't tell men who are 22 years old to start taking steroids. If you're going to do TRT, wait until you're in your 40s to do that. Preserve your natural ability, your body's natural ability to produce testosterone. So how do you do that? Get more sleep, have a better diet, etc. Your body's natural ability to produce testosterone, you can destroy it by taking anabolic steroids. So as a woman, you can destroy your sexual market value by doing things early in life that are really bad mistakes, covering your body. So great industry to be in right now is tattoo removal. I see so many women getting tattoos removed. Great. Guys, you want a super high markup industry where your costs of goods sold aren't very high because you won't have the sunken cost of just buying the laser. Tattoo removal is huge right now. Women are going out. They realize they've been sold a bill of goods by Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion, covering their bodies in ink that was unnecessary. When men get tattoos, it looks like tribal alignment. When women get tattoos, it looks like bondage. It looks like slavery, because that's historically why you would tattoo a woman, because she was a concubine or a slave. And so I don't care how, like, what the double standard I'm expressing is. I'm not telling you I condone this. I wish we were equal. We're not equal, though. I'm not telling, if I'm an oncologist and I come to you, like, and I say, hey man, you have stage 4 pancreatic cancer, I don't applaud the cancer. Congratulations, you have stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Because you have cancer does not mean, because I study cancer does not mean I condone cancer. And because I study evolutionary psychology does not mean I condone it. I wish the world were different. I wish women could be admired for their accomplishments in the workforce the same way that men are, but they're not. I'm dealing with what is and not what ought. And in reality, women are way more, they have way more leverage in the dating marketplace by preserving their value rather than getting a master's degree. It's just the truth. And men it's the opposite. We don't have to preserve our value. In most societies, women do not care that men are virgins. In most societies, women do care about how much money a man makes. They do care about how much upper body muscle he has. They do care about these things. No matter what we want to say, no matter how different it is, men are judged for their upper body muscle. Women are not judged for their upper body muscle. It's just the truth. And because of that, men are 100% stronger than women are in their upper body. Okay. And so when you realize these things, then it's just like, then when I give you the answer and it's not the answer you want to hear, don't blame me, blame Charles Darwin.
One of the most telling studies I read, I think it was in Sex at Dawn or Influence, about they went to some college. They had a woman go up to 100 guys and offer to have sex with
Oh
them
my God.
that night.
Yeah. Okay. So this is such
it?
a great, of course, they did the study in 1979 and 1982. You can't do the study again today. So people have been trying to replicate the study, but of course you can't do the study. And because it's so politically incorrect to try this. They took male models and what they did with the male models and female models, and they took them out on college campuses and they asked 3 questions. Can I get your number? Would you like to go on a date with me? And would you like to go back to my apartment and have sex with me? If women did this, it was like I believe men, it was 75% of men said, when the woman said, would you like to go back and have sex with me? 75% of men said that they would go back and have sex with the woman. For women, when men said, will you go back to my place and have sex with me? 0% of women said yes. So when you show
Wait, and
this,
the
what
other
it did,
25% of men said, I can't do it tonight, but I
yeah, I
can
can't do it
come back
tonight. Yeah, because
tomorrow.
my wife might
My
find out about it.
girlfriend's
Yeah.
coming around tonight.
Yeah. So it's like consequence-free sex was ubiquitously men accepted it and women did not want anything to do with it. And it was so funny because you show this data and it's so incontrovertible. It's so, and no one denies it, but feminists later on said, no, you can't replicate this. This isn't true. Women want sex just as much as men. And it's just like, it was this flex that women had where it's like, no, women, like men, the average man wants as much sex with a variety of partners as the top 1% of women. So guys, I want you to think about like an escort, a fucking a girl who does pornography, or a girl who's like in this lifestyle. She's a swinger and she's a nymphomaniac and she loves a ton of sexual partners. She still does not have as many sexual partners as like the average male stripper. Like the average male stripper who has a ton of sexual partners is going to have more partners than her, the nymphomaniac woman. When men in the Castro were surveyed, so this is a great example. Men who live in the Castro, this is part of San Francisco. This is the gay district of San Francisco. Homosexual men, when they were in the Castro, and so female selectivity did not exist there because it was men having sex with other men, would frequently have 200 sexual partners a year. The wildest porn star female, does not have 200 sexual partners in a year. Men's desire for sexual variety, women can't even come close to it. But feminists hear this and they're like, no, I want to fuck a lot of people too. And I'm like, why? Like, this isn't a pissing contest. Why do you need to want as much sexual variety as men? It was funny. It was actually Alex Datesike who talked about this. It's like, why? Oh, no, it was William Costello who talked about this. Women get pissed when they hear that men want more sexual variety than women. Like it's a flex. It's actually a detriment. Honestly, if men didn't want so much sexual variety, we'd probably get more work done, you know? But men's desire for sexual variety in the first place built society. So it's like a trade-off.
And it's also just not attractive if you're a man and you hear a woman even just talking with her girlfriends about this kind of thing and bragging about how many guys she slept with. It doesn't make you more attractive.
It's funny. Yeah, it's funny. It's fun. Like, by the way, if you want to talk about how many sexual partners you have, I got a spot for you on my show. Come on back to Vegas anytime you want. I love girls like that coming on my show, but you're right. It doesn't make me more attractive. So the other thing we can talk about is what's called mate choice copying. So mate choice copying is this idea that when you see a woman when you see someone of the opposite sex and other people desire that person, you desire them more. When it's tested with women, women find men who are photographed with other women to be more attractive. This is pretty ubiquitous. It's very replicatable. Several studies on this. It's called mate choice copying in humans. Men, however, it doesn't seem to have the same effect. Men seeing women pictured with other men does not make them more attractive. Here's another one. Here's another study that's kind of crazy. Dr. Buss does a study on self-esteem. Self-esteem in men makes men more attractive. Self-esteem in women has no bearing on their attractiveness. Men do not find women with higher self-esteem to be more attractive. Now, you can say that's misogynistic, and I probably agree with you. It probably is. Women, however, who have higher self-esteem want partners who are more physically attractive. So if a woman has higher self-esteem, her desire for an attractive partner increases, but her attractiveness does not increase. When men have higher self-esteem, they are more attractive to the opposite sex. Women are not.
What about in terms of dating, other dating myths? You talk about people thinking they deserve this or that, and how that actually works in terms of dynamics. And then also want to talk about birth control and how that affects attraction.
What they deserve. So yeah, you don't deserve shit. Like that's a real bad. Like one of the problems that's happened. Yeah, but honestly, Disney and like these fairy tales, like that's why I'm so offended by soulmate myth. There's no soulmate, because what soulmate implies is that you deserved something. Mm-hmm. None of you deserve shit. Through the sheer luck that you were born in the United States, and there's a constitution that states that you have you've been given by your creator the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Because you are fortunate enough to be born in this time period, in this place, then you get this thing called human rights. If you were born in Western Africa back in the 17th century, you were sold as slave and no one gave a fuck about you. You're just lucky that you happen to be born during this time. You don't deserve shit. You're just lucky you were born in the United States or in Australia, Britain, Canada, or some westernized liberal democracy. You're just lucky you happen to be born in this place at this time. That's the only reason. You guys don't deserve anything. It just happens to be at the benevolence of men who came before you to fight for your freedom. That's the only reason you have any of these freedoms in the first place. And so people believe that they deserve stuff, which is why I just don't like the soulmate myth. The soulmate myth makes you think you deserve shit. You only get shit because you work for it. Now, some people, what's happened is they're either trust fund kids, they were incredibly good looking, or in the case of like with a lot of women, they're really attractive. And because they're so attractive, they end up getting attraction for men, and they start believing that they deserve a better and better man. They start listening to like female rappers and watch rom-coms that make them believe that their soulmate is coming for them. And it just screws up the dating market because people believe they deserve shit. And it's just, there's no, like, you guys understand Cinderella was a myth? Do you guys know Cinderella was a myth, or do you think that really happened? Do you really think that like the fairy godmother came down because Cinderella was getting hated on and she deserved Prince Charming? No, it's a story. It's a story to sell tickets to Disney movies. Do you guys understand that 50 Shades of Grey was fake? Do you guys understand that billionaires with huge penises don't just sleep with one woman like they do in that stupid fucking book series that ruined a bunch of women? So many women actually believe that Christian Grey, dude, so I read the first book. I survived the first book. I tried to get through the second book. It was terrible. I didn't read the third book. And I asked a friend of mine who read all three books, I'm like, does Christian Grey ever fuck any other women? And they're like, no. And I'm like, this is the dumbest book series I've ever heard of. It makes women actually believe that good-looking billionaires that women chase after only sleep with one woman. Like, it's absurd. Like the book could have been a better, like men and women could have read the book if it had been realistic. But it was one of the dumbest things. Again, it's fiction. I'm not blaming the author. The author's just doing the best they can. What I'm saying is it's such a dangerous precedent to set that women now believe, well, I'm going to get my Christian Grey. He's my soulmate. I deserve him. I'm going to get my billionaire with a huge penis, and he's going to marry me. He's going to want to be with me and reject all these other women for me. Like, it's stupidity, bro. Like, you're ruining women and their viewpoints on the world by having them read this nonsense. And so 50 Shades of Grey is equally as detrimental for women as pornography is for men. That's a better way to say it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, look, I think we have to let people have agency as well in terms of understanding the deception. I think I read something, or I listened to the interview with you and Dr. Butts, and he was saying, if you can perceive, you can be deceived.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of deception that happens out there through story, through social media primarily, because again, we're looking at comparisons.
Yeah. Again, what did we say about an hour ago? We said, stop looking at people's words and only pay attention to their actions. We have 6 rules in MOA. Rule number 1 is we don't listen to the words. We only pay attention to people's actions. And the problem with that is if someone's duplicitous, whether they know it or not, you expose them. And a lot of people are offended by that. They don't like being exposed. Like, again, if you just paid attention to what certain politicians did and not what they said, you're going to see who they are as a person. And that's bad for those politicians. It's very bad. And when you hear a woman keep saying, I only date nice guys and I never sleep with guys on the first date, when you pay attention to what they actually do, women, if a girl goes on a date with you and she expresses to you repeatedly that she will not have sex on the first date, why is she saying that? Is she saying that because she won't have sex on the first date? She's saying that because she did. People only complain about things that affect them. Just remember that. People only complain about things that affect them. What she's saying is that she isn't going to sleep with you on the first date. That's what she's telling you. She's not saying that she's never slept with anyone on the first date. And so guys will hear this and they just listen to the words. You've got to stop listening to the words and you only pay attention to people's actions. You do that, you get a much clearer picture on the world. And what you said, if you can perceive, you can be deceived. Men throughout history have figured out ways to lie to women in order to get short-term sexual access. And women have figured out ways to counteract that lying. And women have also figured out ways to deceive men into thinking that they were going to get short-term sexual access in exchange for resources. And men have figured out ways to counter that.
So we're basically just baboons with makeup and Lamborghinis.
Yeah. So hairless murder apes. Yeah. Hairless murder apes. Closer to chimpanzees than baboons, but yeah, very close.
How did you get introduced to the red pill community and the Dan Bilzerians? And
these guys? So Dan and I just happen to be friends. We live a couple blocks from each other. We just happen to be friends. Dan used to live in this building I live in now. The thing with Dan has nothing to do with any of this. The other part was what happened was I started making on my podcast. I started making videos about evolutionary psychology, but I have the receipts to back it up that I have a lot of successful women. So when I did that, a lot of people in that red pill space started to notice me and then they wanted to come on my show. And the thing is, Rolo really does. He's a big fan of evolutionary psychology. And when he would listen to my stuff, he would see, well, clearly this guy has read more than anyone else in this space. Obviously, not more than William Costello, not more than Mac and Murphy, not more than Dr. Buss, not more than Alex Dateside. But as far as the regular content creators, I had done more studying than any of them. So he wanted to do a show with me. We do one podcast. It's 4 hours long. And then we started Access Vegas together. And then from there, then I started getting requests from a bunch of people in the red pill space for me to come on. And that a lot of them were surprised because they'll talk to me and they expected me to be some sort of like pro-military, white ring, brutish troglodyte who just like screaming, go America and fuck everyone who doesn't like Trump. And of course, I'm not like that. I'm like barely a fan of Donald Trump, like moderately. Most of my friends are female. I would definitely vote for a female politician if she agreed with what I agreed with. And I think sexual assault is drastically underreported. I think women are being sexually assaulted at a rate that like 1 in every 7 sexual assaults gets reported. I work with a domestic abuse charity and I rescue animals. People are shocked when they find the shit out about me. And then so in the red pill space, I still get, because I get so many requests to do interviews with them, then everyone just thinks that I'm a red pill troglodyte and I just follow in lockstep with everything that people in that space say. But of course I don't. Men cheat more than women. There you go. There's one. Like guys in the red pill space think that women cheat more than men. That's not true. Men cheat more than women.
Did you sit down one day and decide, okay, I'm going to read more books than anybody else in this space, and I'm going to make myself the premier expert, and then people are going to be attracted to wanting me on their show? And was that a strategy, or were you just really passionate about this thing and you wanted to learn this much?
Sort of. So I'm an autodidact, meaning I don't have a degree in some of these things, but I read everything there is. So every book that comes out on evolutionary psychology, there's an audio book on Audible. I immediately put it at the top of my queue and I read it. Generally, they kind of end up saying the same things, but I watch every interview Dr. Buss has ever done. I watch everything William Costello does. Like when it comes from the source, actual evolutionary psychologists, I try to read it. And so I think I'm more informed on that subject than 99% of the population, but I'm not more informed than like, say, the guys who are in that space. They're definitely more informed. Mm-hmm. I would say I'm about as informed as Chris Williamson is, who also does a lot of study on evolutionary psychology. He's an autodidact when it comes to that. So that's kind of where I learned that whole space from. What was that? And then as far as what I wanted to do was outstudy other people before I did interviews and have more questions that were relevant to them than anyone else that had ever interviewed them. And so that's something that I was able to do. But I wanted to be, because I listen to audiobooks at triple speed, I'm able to get through like a lot of content very quickly. And then I take notes on it. And then I listen to a podcast at double speed. And then I'm able to get through those pretty quickly. And so I try to do a lot of research before I interview people.
Is there a book in the works?
It depends. I mean, they're trying to find me a ghostwriter. I'm not going to write a book. I mean, if somebody wants to write, I can sit down on my couch and just tell them stuff, then I'll do it. But I don't have time for that, bro. I don't have time to do anything. I got to get off here right now and I got to go start. I got 15 problem fires I got to put out. I wish.
What's a day in the life like?
Get up around 10:30, trade stock options. Usually, first meeting is usually at 1. I'll have one-on-ones or meetings from 1 to 4. Then I usually do a group call on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays. Sometimes on Wednesdays, I'll do a podcast at 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock is usually when I either reserve podcasts or group calls. And then at 6, once that's over, then it's usually gym time. It's usually my second workout. I'll do one workout first. I'll go outside and just walk around for like 45 minutes. I'll do a second workout. I'll try to get through a gallon of water every day. And then dinner usually around midnight. And then I'm in bed by like 3 or 4 in the morning.
Wow. Beautiful, man. Well, look, I definitely want to have you on again. This is a lot to digest, and maybe we'll do an in-person thing one day when I come out to Vegas, or do you shoot in LA as well, or just Vegas mostly?
No, I just shoot Vegas.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll definitely do that. If someone's listening to this and they're intrigued and they want to know more, you've done like you have a massive YouTube channel. Do you recommend, is there a video that we can link in the show notes that's like the best introduction into your world?
I like those Osmo videos. I think those are pretty good. Probably some of the Osmo videos that I do on gratitude probably would be really good. It's hard, man. I don't know what the best one would be. There's just so many things. Well, I'd probably go through my shorts. I'd probably just go through my shorts.
Beautiful, man.
Yeah.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, thanks again for making time and coming on and being so generous in your share. And
of course.
And I look forward to more.
All right, man. Good to meet you, Light.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for watching. Just FYI, we post a new video almost every day, so make sure you comment and subscribe below so you don't miss out on anything. And if you enjoyed this video, I think you're really going to love this one as well. And if you ever want to see a playlist of all of my podcasts or all of the plot twists or any other category of videos, you can find links to those in the description below.